Chapter 8:16. After the black-faced guard went out, he first found a very famous old doctor to take a look at the medicine. The old doctor frowned and stroked his beard. After looking at the medicine for a while, he drank 1 or 2 drops. After vomiting for a while, he said with an expression as if he had seen the heavens, "Which divine doctor made this medicine? It's really amazing. He can actually boil the medicine to such an extent." The black-faced guard was stunned. "Is this medicine really useful? What's its use?" The old doctor said excitedly, "I really can't say what's the use of this medicine, but this level of boiling medicine is definitely something I've never seen in my life. Look, it's so uniform. Even with so many years of experience, I can't even taste what the herbs are in it. And the dragon and the tiger are in opposition. Water and fire are of the same origin. I can only faintly feel that it has an extreme effect of strengthening the yang energy." This was true. With the sword spirit's level of boiling medicine, no one in the entire Chongtian could compare with him. But before the old doctor finished speaking, the black-faced guard had already disappeared. Hey, don't go. He's really a divine doctor, really a miraculous medicine." The black-faced guard tried his best to find the medicine for this second course of treatment. He was full of excitement along the way. Young master can be saved, the Huang clan can be saved. On the afternoon of the second day, when Huang Gong was still lying on the bed like a corpse after being fed the medicine as usual, 2 people suddenly came in. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao. "Big brother, are you here?" The 2 of them were full of smiles. "What's the matter?" Huang Xiaoyou lay on the bed weakly and rolled his eyes. "Who are you?" Chu Tinghu was stunned. "Why is there another person here? He looks like a tuberculosis ghost, as if he's already dead." "Why do you care who I am?" Huang Xiaoyou vomited again and again. He only felt that there was an evil fire burning in his heart. "Why are you here?" Just at this moment, Chu Yang came out from inside. "Big brother, you've been back for a long time. We especially came here to invite you and hold a welcome dinner for you," Chu Tinghu said. "Oh." Chu Yang tilted his head and looked at the 2 of them. "What are these 2 guys thinking about?" Chu Tingjiao said enthusiastically, "Big brother, we've already booked a banquet at the Lingyun Pavilion. Please come." He laughed and sighed, saying sincerely, "Big brother, no matter what, we're brothers after all. Blood is thicker than water." He seemed to want to say something but stopped on second thought. Chu Yang understood and laughed. "You mean you want to treat me to a meal?" "Yes," Chu Tinghu said sincerely. "Big brother, please do us the honor and give us a chance." Chu Yang had a complicated look in his eyes. He pondered silently for a long time. Then he finally said, "Okay, I'll go." Chu Tinghu and Chu Tinghu were overjoyed and said, "Then we'll wait for you at the Lingyun Pavilion." The 2 of them left. "How could you agree?" Huang Xiaoyou didn't care about lying on the ground like a corpse. When he saw Chu Tinghu leaving, he jumped up and said anxiously, "Are you crazy?" Chu Yang turned to look at him. "Your 2 brothers obviously have bad intentions towards you," Huang Xiaoyou said hurriedly. His forehead was covered with sweat. "I know," Chu Yang said calmly. "Then why did you still go?" Huang Xiaoyou was stunned. "You're so concerned about me?" Chu Yang looked at him with a half-smile. Huang Xiaoyou was stunned. Then he turned his head and spat angrily, "I'm not concerned about you. I'm just afraid that no one will treat me if you die." Chu Yang laughed loudly. But he didn't say out one sentence. "Not only do they have bad intentions, when have I ever come with good intentions? But everything has a beginning." As they were talking, another 3 people came together and hurriedly entered the Purple Crystal's Huichen Hall. Big brother, are you here?" They were the 15-year-old Chu Tingyun, the 3rd son of Chu Failong, as well as the 17-year-old Chu Tingxiao and the 13-year-old Chu Tingkong. The 3 youths still had the innocence of a child. They rushed over in a hurry and their faces were actually steaming with sweat. "What's the matter? Why are the 3 of you here?" Chu Yang asked puzzledly. "Are the Chu brothers going to have a meeting today?" The 3 of them looked at each other. It seemed that no one wanted to speak first and they were all urging each other. Finally, Chu Tingyun plucked up his courage and spoke first. "Big brother, you've been back for a long time. We brothers haven't sat together for a long time. How about this? Tonight, the 3 of us will be the host at the Purple Chi Pavilion. Let's get you drunk." The other 2 nodded repeatedly. Chu Yang was stunned. "What's going on? It's just a short while and 2 groups of people have come to treat us?" One group invited the Lingyun Pavilion, and the other invited the Purple Chi Pavilion. The Lingyun Pavilion was located in the northernmost part of Wujin town, and was a top restaurant, while the Purple Chi Pavilion was located in the southernmost part of Wujin town, and was not much worse than the Lingyun Pavilion. One was in the north and the other was in the south. Chu Yang's gaze changed and he finally probed, "Just now, Tinghu and Tingjiao came and invited me. I've already agreed. Shall we change the date?" The expressions of the three changed greatly, and Chu Tingyun blurted out, "Lingyun Pavilion? Big brother, you can't go." Then his face turned pale and he shut his mouth tightly. Chu Yang's body shook, and he looked at Chu Tingyun with a complicated gaze. He only felt his blood boiling. The four brothers became silent at the same time. Huang Xiaoyu looked at this and that and finally sighed. He muttered, "The matters between the brothers are really complicated. It gives me a headache." Then he slipped away quietly, leaving the space for the brothers to talk. Seeing that Chu Yang remained silent, Chu Tingyun's face became paler and paler. Finally he whispered, "Big brother?" Chu Tingxiao and Chu Tingkong stepped forward at the same time and whispered, "Big brother? They want to harm you." Tingyun eavesdropped on this. Chu Yang's face twitched and he asked hoarsely, "Why?" He looked at Chu Tingyun and his voice was hoarse. There was even some contradiction and pain. Although he didn't say it clearly, the three brothers knew that Chu Yang was not asking why Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao wanted to harm him, but why Chu Tingyun came to tell him. Chu Tingyun's immature face turned pale. His lips trembled and he lowered his head. Then he suddenly raised his head again. I'm brothers with my elder brother, but I'm also brothers with you. I don't want this clan to collapse. I don't want any of you to get into trouble. We're from the same root, from the same family." Chu Yang shut his mouth tightly. When Chu Tingyun said this, he only felt that his heart moved inexplicably, and he felt a sharp pain. Chu Tingyun stepped forward, raised his face and looked at Chu Yang with a pleading look. There was panic, shame and pleading on his face. "Big brother, can you take a step back, please? Can you take a step back, please?" Chu Yang's heart shook. After a long time Chu Yang said bitterly, "I also want to take a step back, but I already can't take a step back. Since I returned to the clan, I don't have any way back. If I take a step back I'll be dead." The three youths opposite him looked gloomy. They bit their lips and lowered their heads. As the Chu clan's younger brothers, they were deeply moved by Chu Yang's words. Since their big brother returned to the clan, had he ever asked for anything? In everyone's eyes, their big brother had always been at the top, and had taken advantage of everything, but only they knew that their big brother had no choice but to fight back. That's all. After he returned to the clan, he didn't even take the initiative to fight back. Instead, he was pushed into the whirlpool of conflict by the clan. Every time he fought back. But Chu Failong had used his means time and time again. Until now, he had even sent his two sons to invite Chu Yang to a banquet to deal with him. The four brothers stood silently and no one said a word. Chu Tingyun's breathing became more and more rapid. His chest couldn't help but heave up and down. Finally, his breathing became heavier and heavier like a bellows. He struggled and said in a low voice, "Big brother, I heard that there's Yi Wubwa and Yi Shisan from the Yi clan." Chu Yang's body shook. Chu Tingyun lowered his head and said with difficulty, "Big brother, I know that my father and my two elder brothers have wronged you, but can you let them go?" After saying this, the young man's two teardrops fell to the ground. He suddenly turned around and walked out quickly. He didn't even pay attention to Chu Yang, Chu Tingxiao and Chu Tingkong's calls. He buried his head and rushed out. "Big brother, I'll go and take a look. Tingyun is very emotional." Chu Tingxiao wanted to say something but hesitated. Finally he said, "Big brother, you think more, and take care." After saying this, he pulled Chu Tingkong and rushed out. The three of them came and went quickly. Until the figures of the three disappeared, Chu Yang was still standing in his original position. His expression was complicated. After a long time, Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Facing the emptiness in front of him, he murmured, "Brother, you're still young. You don't understand. I have no way to retreat. Your father also has no way to retreat. Your two brothers originally had thousands of paths, but they still chose a dead end. But you are making things difficult for me." He smiled bitterly. In his heart, he had already deduced most of this matter. Chu Failong and his two brothers had discussed and asked them to use their status as brothers to lure Chu Yang out and make use of Yi Wubwa to kill him. But this matter was overheard by the third brother, Chu Tingyun. This hot-blooded youth then wanted to invite him in advance so that he could avoid this disaster. But for some reason he didn't dare to say it out loud. Thus there was this scene today. The youth's mood was pure and kind. He had put in a lot of effort. How would he know that his father and this big brother of his had already reached the stage where they couldn't coexist? I don't want anything to happen to any of you. Because we're from the same family. Chu Yang didn't know how many times he had heard this sentence. He had even said it himself a few times. But only today the youth's pure and innocent face and voice had deeply touched him. Unfortunately, I can't retreat. Chu Yang shook his head slowly. He looked despondent. I can't retreat. To be continued? Chapter 8:17. Just as he was thinking, a figure flashed at the door. Sha Xinliang rushed in hurriedly with his shiny bald head. When he saw Chu Yang, he was overjoyed. Divine Dr. Chu is indeed here. In order to deceive others, Sha Xinliang had always addressed Chu Yang as Divine Dr. Chu outside. Chu Yang was shocked and said, "Why are you here today?" Sha Xinliang squinted his eyes and said, "I have an important guest who has a sudden illness. I'd like to invite Divine Dr. Chu to take a look at him. Is that okay?" Chu Yang immediately understood. To be able to make Sha Xinliang come here personally, it's probably that law enforcement master. A doctor has the heart of a parent. Saving people is like putting out a fire. Chu Yang said cleanly, "I'll go now." Then he instructed Huang Xiaoyou to guard the door and followed Sha Xinliang out. "I'll carry you." Sha Xinliang obviously didn't want to delay any longer. "Okay. Little brother, the law enforcement master is here." Sha Xinliang lowered his voice excitedly as he carried Chu Yang on his back. "Yes, I've guessed it," Chu Yang said calmly. "I've told the law enforcement master about our matter. He expressed his doubts and even scolded me for sowing discord and suspecting the law enforcement master's pharmacist." Sha Xinliang said. Chu Yang was doubtful. "So, the law enforcement master is very likely to blame you when you go there this time. By then, please be magnanimous and forgive me," Sha Xinliang said worriedly. "I know," Chu Yang smiled deeply. Then, "The law enforcement master's injury, little brother, are you confident?" Sha Xinliang asked worriedly. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, "If that Tong Wuxin is a spy, he'll definitely lay his hands on the law enforcement master. As long as he's willing to do it, I'll be able to find out. But, if Tong Wuxin is innocent and causes us to wrongly accuse him, then there's no other way." Sha Xinliang's galloping body suddenly stopped. "What's the probability of that?" Chu Yang was silent. "Then little brother, won't you be in extreme danger this time?" Sha Xinliang became anxious. "How about I send you away immediately?" Chu Yang smiled sincerely. He felt comforted for Sha Xinliang's undisguised true nature at this moment. "It's okay. Even if the law enforcement master wants to kill me, he won't use such a trivial reason, right? Besides, if we suspect the wrong person, we should be punished. What's so difficult about that? Moreover, according to our speculations, the possibility that Tong Wuxin is the traitor is 90% certain." Sha Xinliang finally felt a little relieved and said, "Little brother, don't worry. If we're really wrong and the law enforcement master is furious, I'll protect you even if I have to risk my life." Yes. While they were speaking, they had already arrived at the law enforcement hall. Sha Xinliang put Chu Yang down. Then the two of them walked inside side by side. Qin Baoshan had already come out to welcome them and said, "You're finally here. The law enforcement master threw a tantrum at me just now." As he spoke, he looked at Chu Yang worriedly. "Little brother, are you confident? I see that the law enforcement master is very protective of that Tong Wuxin. It's better for you to leave as soon as possible." He said these words hurriedly, quickly and softly. Chu Yang blinked his eyes and smiled. "Things have to pass and we have to face them eventually. Some things can't be avoided. Isn't that so?" Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan looked solemn. Behind the law enforcement hall, in a small hall, the three of them stepped into the hall. Then they felt darkness in front of them. It seemed that the day had suddenly turned into night. Chu Yang saw a person at first glance. There was only one person in this small hall. And because of this person, it seemed that his existence had covered the entire sky, making this initial afternoon turn into night. This person was wearing a black robe and a black cloak. He was standing quietly with his back facing the door. He stood in front of the seat with his hands clasped behind his back. He raised his head slightly and looked at the words on the wall. He had a head of black hair, and there was only a lock of dazzling silver-white hair at the back of his head. This person was 8 feet tall and had a straight figure. Although his back was facing the crowd, there was naturally a kind of lofty aura just by looking at his back. He was like a towering mountain that stood quietly. Splendid southeast intercepts the torrent, vast and mighty, overturns the universe for 10,000 years, swallows the heaven and earth and changes the seasons. This person in black read out the contents of the words on the wall softly with his hands clasped behind his back. He said lightly, "Sha Xinliang, do you know the contents of this word?" Although his back was facing the three of them, there was still an imposing aura when he opened his mouth. It was as if a mountain was pressing down from the sky. Sha Xinliang said carefully, "I vaguely remember that when the Dharma Supreme was patrolling the southeast, the biggest river in the southeast, Tianshui River, met with torrential rain and torrent. Many places in the southeast were affected. At that time, the Dharma Supreme used his heavenly skills to intercept the torrent, move mountains from all directions, and create the biggest lake in the heavens. That's the Heavenly Venerable Lake. After that, the Dharma Supreme used his heavenly skills to open up the passage to the sea with one punch, and let the excess lake water flow into the sea, saving billions of lives in the southeast. This is the greatest merit in the world." After the incident, the Dharma Supreme wrote this poem. In the future, the Southeast Law Enforcement Hall will hang this poem in every hall to show our infinite reverence for the Dharma Supreme. Sha Xinliang said with fear and trepidation. However, Chu Yang's heart was almost numb from shock. Torrential rain ravaged the southeast, and the Dharma Supreme moved mountains to form a lake? Open up the passage to the sea with one punch? What kind of cultivation is this? Even if it's a fairy tale, it shouldn't be so abnormal, right? The person in black sighed and said, "Yes, the Dharma Supreme was patrolling the southeast 300 years ago, and achieved this legendary feat. This also made the reputation of the law enforcement officers even more prominent in the world. However, this is not the power of the Dharma Supreme alone, but the hard work of countless law enforcement officers." "Yes," Sha Xinliang said respectfully. "So, I don't need to say more about what the three words law enforcement officers represent," the person in black said lightly. "But a great dike can collapse because of an ant's nest. If the law enforcement officers suspect each other, then the painstaking efforts of the Dharma Supreme and his unparalleled achievements in the past will eventually become a thing of the past." Yes. Qin Baoshan and Sha Xinliang were sweating profusely. They knew that the law enforcement master was warning them. "The little guy behind you is the so-called divine Dr. Chu Yang, right?" the law enforcement master asked lightly. "Yes," Chu Yang said. "Haha, you dare to call yourself a divine doctor at such a young age? You even dare to point fingers at the Southeast law enforcement officers and sow discord. How should you be punished?" The law enforcement master's tone was very light, but whether it was Chu Yang, Sha Xinliang or Qin Baoshan, all of them could sense the crisis and depression in his voice. A faint murderous intent spread quietly in the room. Obviously, the law enforcement master had the intention to kill this divine doctor, who appeared out of nowhere and was suspected of sowing discord. Crime? I admit that I don't, but I can be considered as having made a contribution, Chu Yang said quietly. Made a contribution? Where is the contribution? The law enforcement master said coldly. Do you have any evidence to prove that you're guilty? Chu Yang didn't give in. The law enforcement master became silent. The atmosphere in the entire room seemed to have solidified at the moment when he became silent. What I said is true evidence. The law enforcement master's voice became colder and colder. This divine doctor's pair of eyes is also the real evidence. Chu Yang sneered, to say something arrogant, my pair of eyes and one finger are unique in the whole world. Arrogant. The law enforcement master snorted lightly, let me see what you're capable of. The meaning of this sentence was obvious. But Qin Baoshan and Sha Xinliang's hearts were beating at the same time. They secretly complained, your back is facing us and we can only see the back of your head. How can you see what he's capable of when he's dressed in black? Chu Yang became silent. He looked carefully at the back of the figure in black from top to bottom and said softly, Law enforcement master, you're indeed worthy of your reputation. Worthy of my reputation? The law enforcement master chuckled. How can you tell that I'm worthy of my reputation? Chu Yang said lightly, your cultivation is extraordinary. You're so young but you still have black hair and a youthful face. There's only a lock of white hair at the back of your head. I really admire you. When he said this, even Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan noticed that the law enforcement master's body suddenly stiffened. The two of them couldn't help but feel nervous. The black robe flashed and it was as if the whole world had turned from night to day. The law enforcement master finally turned around. When he turned around, it actually gave people the feeling that there were two worlds in front of him. This was a thin face. His eyes were like an eagle's, and his whole body carried an aura that kept strangers away. A cold and ruthless aura could be clearly felt from his face. Thick eyebrows and a square face. His black hair was combed on his head. His black headscarf was the same color as his hair. His face was slightly dark, but he didn't have any beard. At this moment, his sharp eyes were staring closely at Chu Yang's face. Chu Yang only felt that his face was constantly being pricked by steel needles, and there were bursts of unbearable pain. A martial saint expert. This is the power of a martial saint expert. And he's definitely not a low-stage martial saint. Facing such an expert, Chu Yang finally heaved a sigh of relief, because you've finally turned around. You've let me see your face. All kinds of illnesses in the human body could be seen from one's face. When the law enforcement master was looking at Chu Yang was also looking at him without dodging. Is there anything else? The law enforcement master asked quietly. Law enforcement master, your forehead is full. It's commonly known as a full and round forehead. This is the sign of longevity. But Chu Yang looked at him without blinking and said, although your face is rosy, there's a touch of darkness on your forehead. If I'm not wrong, you'll definitely have a headache every once in a while. Chu Yang said softly, although it's not fatal, it's completely bearable. After one time it won't recur for a long time. But that feeling is probably not good. Even with your martial saint level martial power, you won't be able to suppress it. Chu Yang still looked carefully and said, no, it's not that you can't suppress it, but that you can't suppress it at all. Because once you suppress it, the injury will spread and endanger your brain. The law enforcement master didn't express his opinion. His eyes were as deep and cold as a deep pool of water. Without moving, he said lightly, is there anything else? Begging for monthly votes. Sister Feng has returned to her parents' home. Tonight, I'll work overtime to write more chapters. I'll continue to work hard. It might be a little late. Hashtag. Chapter 8:18. Part 7 Chapter 14 Beyond Expectation. There are more. Chu Yang said with certainty, and there are too many. The law enforcement master said calmly, continue. Chu Yang laughed and said, then I'll say one more thing. Law enforcement master's face is a little dark. It seems that you have a normal complexion. However, dare I ask, your complexion wasn't like this decades ago, right? The law enforcement master looked at Chu Yang. His eyes were as sharp as ever, but he didn't say anything. Generally speaking, in the process of cultivation, a martial artist will undergo a few rounds of cleansing. After reaching the saint level, one will be able to maintain one's youthful appearance. This is because all the impurities in one's body will be gone, and one will be able to connect the bridge of heaven and earth in one go. If you're willing, you can even maintain your 30 to 40 years old appearance until the last moment of your life. After the martial saint level, the supreme martial artist can even rejuvenate the body. Chu Yang smiled. Of course, at that time, it will be up to each person to decide. Moreover, people above the saint level don't have many requirements for their appearance. However, the law enforcement master's expression is definitely not normal. Instead, it should have become tender and white after the saint level cleansing. It wasn't until he suffered some kind of injury that his face turned black. Chu Yang said frankly and with assurance, although this kind of injury only shows that your face turns black, there must be some blockage in your meridians. The law enforcement master's expression remained unchanged. She just stared at him. However, the murderous aura in the air had already dissipated without a trace. Only that oppressive feeling remained. Chu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. He thought that he had finally passed the first hurdle. But the second hurdle would test his true level. As expected, the law enforcement master said in a deep voice, you do have some ability. Although it's too exaggerated to say that you're invincible in the heavens, you're already worthy of being called a divine doctor. However, this is still not enough. I know that this isn't enough for the law enforcement chief today. However, it's enough for me to have a foothold in this heavenly layer, or even in this flat mountain ridge, or even the entire southeast region. Chu Yang smiled lightly. The law enforcement master closed his eyes and said, but it's not enough. Chu Yang smiled elegantly and said, since it's not enough, may I ask the law enforcement master to extend your hand and let me take your pulse? The law enforcement master looked at him for a while and said in a deep voice, do you know the consequences of feeling the pulse? Chu Yang said proudly, if the law enforcement master didn't want to kill me right from the start, I wouldn't have been able to kill you. In that case, I really have no interest in taking your pulse. The law enforcement master narrowed his eyes. Chu Yang smiled and said, law enforcement officers are indeed the masters of the heavens and take care of all the injustices in the world. However, I have a defensive technique that is enough for me to conquer the world. It has nothing to do with me. He chuckled. However, I can't bear the crime of sowing discord within the law enforcement officers, so I can only force a duck onto a perch. Let's clear this accusation first. As for the truth, I dare not speak nonsense. The law enforcement master smiled slightly and said, "Oh? What do you mean?" Chu Yang said straightforwardly, "As long as my medical skills can be recognized. Then, even if all the law enforcement officers are dead, what does it have to do with me?" Upon hearing this extremely unpleasant sentence, the law enforcement master was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed loudly. This sudden laughter gave Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan, who were worried about Chu Yang, a huge fright. Their hair almost stood on end. The law enforcement master stepped forward and came to Chu Yang. He said, "Follow me." The three of them followed behind him and entered the small hall at the back. The law enforcement master smiled and said, "Sit, sit. Xinliang, go and make tea." After a smile, the sky cleared up immediately. Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan were instantly overjoyed. But Chu Yang knew that his crisis was far from over. Although the law enforcement master's attitude was cordial, the sudden change still made it ambiguous. But Chu Yang had something to rely on. Chu Yang's reliance was a sentence that Xia Xinliang had once said. 12 years ago, the law enforcement master chased after a martial saint. Although he succeeded in killing the martial saint in the end, he was also badly injured and almost died. There was a lot to be done with these words. A martial saint expert had the cultivation to heal himself. Ordinary injuries would be healed in a few days. Even if his muscles and bones were injured, it wouldn't be a big deal because his cultivation was high. To be able to injure himself so badly that he almost lost his life. That was an injury that even a saint-level cultivator could do nothing about. Since it was so serious, it must have hurt his foundation. Since his foundation was hurt, how could there be no repercussions? The more difficult it was for a person to get injured, the more serious the injury would be once he suffered an injury that he couldn't heal himself. Not long after, Xia Xinliang served the tea. Each of them had a cup. The fragrance of the tea rose in spirals, and the atmosphere instantly became harmonious. The law enforcement master picked up the teacup with one hand, and the lines on his face became gentler. He said, "Divine Dr. Chu, please?" Chu Yang said, "You don't have to be so polite." He also picked up a cup. The law enforcement master sniffed the fragrance of the tea and said, "Good tea." He drank a mouthful, closed his eyes and savored the aftertaste. Then he said, "Divine Dr. Chu, you may not know my name. I'm Han Xiaoran. This name is a little soft, so I won't mention it easily. But I'll never forget it, because this is the name that my mother gave me." His face seemed to be a little blurred in the steam. Chu Yang said softly, "Your mother must be a talented woman." The law enforcement master, Han Xiaoran, gave a nostalgic smile and let out a long sigh. He said disappointedly, "My mother has left me, for more than 1,300 years. But every time I write my name on the paper, I'll remember the scene when my mother held my hand and taught me how to write my name. My heart will suddenly soften. So, I've been a law enforcement officer for many years. But I'll always be lenient to those who are filial to their mothers and have committed crimes because of filial piety. The law is heartless, but people have feelings." Han Xiaoran sighed deeply. Who doesn't have parents, wife and children? We law enforcement officers are not afraid of blood debts, but we must have a clear conscience. If there's a day when your soul returns to heaven, don't regret it before you die. As he said, he looked at Xia Xinliang intentionally or unintentionally. Obviously, this sentence was meant as a warning. Chu Yang was in awe of him. Chu Yang could tell that Han Xiaoran's words were absolutely from the bottom of his heart. No wonder his prestige was so high in the southeast region. You must have a clear conscience. If there's a day when your soul returns to heaven, don't regret it before you die. These words had really struck a chord with Chu Yang. Xia Xinliang was also shocked. He stood up and said, "I'll definitely remember the law enforcement master's teachings." Han Xiaoran nodded slightly. He pressed his palm down and motioned for Xia Xinliang to sit down. He said a little sadly, "It's a pity that law enforcement officers have become more and more powerful in the past thousands of years. But now, how many of them are able to do things with a clear conscience? The entire world is filled with a foul atmosphere." He sighed deeply and said, "I'm in charge of the southeast region and this is my duty. I can only do my best to build up the southeast region. As for the others, He smiled and said, "We've digressed from the topic. Well, that Tong Wuxin was recommended to me by the third master of the Shi clan, Shirpadian. Tong Wuxan had lost his father when he was young. His widowed mother had raised him up. Although Tong Wuxia himself was unbearable and had a bad reputation of being a heartless killer, he had done his best for his mother and was extremely filial to her. Because of his filial piety and his excellent medical skills, I accepted him into the southeast region. He looked at Chu Yang quietly. Divine Dr. Chu, do you understand what I mean? Chu Yang thought for a while and said, I'm slow-witted. I don't fully understand. Han Xiaoran appreciated his frankness very much. He smiled and said, the law enforcement officers have their own doctors, and they're all the family members of the law enforcement officers. They're selected by the headquarters and sent to the Medicine Valley to learn medicine. When they return, they'll be assigned to different places. So, the law enforcement hall doesn't allow external doctors. Chu Yang was stunned. Then why? Han Xiaoran smiled. That year the doctors were nervous. There was chaos in the southeast region, and the law enforcement officers suffered heavy casualties. I had to deal with 2 martial saints at the same time. I had no time to spare. So, I accepted Shi Potion's recommendation. When I came back with serious injuries, it was Tong Wuxia who tried his best to treat me. And I stayed. Firstly, I've also thought about whether or not. So, I decided to wait and see. Secondly, I intentionally owed Shirpadian a favor. Yes, but after so many years, some of my thoughts have already faded. Han Xiaoran looked at Chu Yang. Do you understand now? He said it very vaguely, but Chu Yang already understood what he meant. It wasn't that he didn't have any doubts about Tong Wuxia. Or it could be said that he didn't have his guard up against the Shi clan. And what he said now wasn't because he wanted to confide in Chu Yang, but to further exert pressure on Chu Yang. But although Chu Yang understood, he still didn't understand where the pressure came from. He could faintly tell that this Tong Wuxia didn't seem to be so simple. Han Xiaoran looked at Chu Yang lightly. After a while, he stretched out his wrist and said, Divine Doctor, please feel my pulse. Chu Yang didn't know why, but when he looked at Han Xiaoran's arm, he actually felt his heart become heavy. He took a deep breath and said, since that's the case, I'll try my best to check it. He stretched out his finger and placed it on Han Xiaoran's wrist. Then he closed his eyes and looked solemn. The power of the sword spirit carried out a comprehensive check on Han Xiaoran's body at this moment. Chu Yang's face slowly became heavy and ugly. Even he himself did not expect that the diagnosis this time would be such a result. Han Xiaoran looked at his face and smiled. Divine Dr. Chu? Chu Yang let out a breath and said, what an ingenious method. Han Xiaoran laughed. I'm best friends with the great elder of the Medicine Valley. After a moment of silence, Chu Yang said, it turns out that the law enforcement master also knows something. 4th update. Begging for votes. Chapter 8:19. Han Xiaoran smiled lightly and said, that year I first killed the 5th stage martial saint, Qing Mafeng, and then captured the 8th stage peak mad blade poison saint, Nan Kongyun. My internal organs were severely injured and my head was shaken. Furthermore, I was inflicted with Nan Kongyun's unique poison technique, which penetrated deep into my internal organs. It was Tong Wuxia who treated my injuries, and after that I became ill. That invisible poison couldn't be removed completely, and I need to be treated once a year. Until now. He smiled faintly and said, that kind of feeling is not pleasant. Chu Yang said in surprise, invisible poison? You're saying that your poison is invisible? Han Xiaoran's body shook violently, and he suddenly straightened up. His eyes were cold and he looked at Chu Yang without speaking for a long time. Then he said heavily, what do you mean? Chu Yang pondered for a moment and asked, did the great elder of the Medicine Valley also say that this is invisible poison? Han Xiaoran's face turned cold. He took a deep breath and said, you mean, this is an invisible poison? Chu Yang was silent for a moment and said, poison is something that makes people pale in fright. It's also impossible to guard against experts. But, the scariest part of poison is that it's used, not the poison itself. Han Xiaoran's face was cold and stiff. He sat stiffly and didn't speak. Head Deacon Fa went to chase after Nan Kongyun, so he naturally knew about Nan Kongyun's invisible poison. Therefore, I don't believe that Chief Enforcer Fa will go over without any preparations. Chu Yang said softly. Han Xiaoran's eyes froze and he said in a low voice, that's right. To deal with the Mad Blade Poison Saint, if one wasn't prepared and didn't have the confidence to dodge his poison technique, one would only be courting death. When I went there that year, not only was I equipped with the antidote personally given by the Dharma Supreme, but I also had the all-dispelling pill from the Medicine Valley. Besides, I was also wearing the purple silk clothes. Chu Yang said, Head Deacon Fa forgot the most important thing, which is that you're also carrying the cultivation of a peak martial saint. Han Xiaoran didn't speak. He had already said that he had captured Nan Kongyun, who was an 8th-stage peak martial saint. Then wouldn't he be at least an 8th-stage martial saint? As far as I know, even if a martial saint doesn't have such tight protection, as long as one's cultivation is used, no matter whether it's invisible poison or visible poison, it's useless. Chu Yang said. Han Xiaoran was silent for a long time before he said, "You're right. But you were poisoned." Chu Yang coldly emphasized. This sentence was very ordinary, but it was a conclusion. "Yes, I was poisoned." Han Xiaoran stood up and paced slowly. His face was as cold as iron. At this moment he seemed to be wearing an ice mask. He said slowly, "When I came back I felt discomfort all over my body. I didn't consider that it was poison at that time. Because I'm confident that even if Nan Kongyun used poison during the battle, he wouldn't have succeeded. However, after Tong Wuxing diagnosed me, he said that it was an invisible poison. Moreover, all the symptoms were the same as Nan Kongyun's invisible poison. At that time I had captured Nan Kongyun alive. Under torture, Nan Kongyun investigated for me and confirmed it without a doubt. It is indeed an invisible poison." Han Xiaoran smiled and said, "But there's no antidote for invisible poison. That's why you can only rely on Tong Wuxing to heal you," Chu Moyang said. "That's right. That's right. From then on, your invisible poison started to take root in your body. Every year it would break out," Chu Yang continued. Han Xiaoran stood with his hands behind his back and said coldly, "That's right. So, every year when it breaks out, it's Tong Wuxing who suppresses it for you," Chu Yang pressed on. Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan, who were at the side, were sweating profusely as they listened to the conversation between the two of them. Both of them felt that the atmosphere in the room was becoming more and more oppressive and ghastly. They almost couldn't breathe, as if they would faint from suffocation at any time. "That's right." Han Xiaoran put his hands behind his back and turned his back to Chu Yang. But the joints of his hands were already a little white. "So, over the years your skin color became darker. But as a chief enforcer and a man, you didn't notice it at first. Or, you were only reminded by me now." Chu Yang's voice was indifferent. "That's right," Han Xiaoran said again. "So, one day your hair turned from completely black to a touch of silver. And this touch of silver can't be removed. And if I'm not wrong, your scalp under this touch of silver is already necrotic. This silver hair doesn't grow from your scalp, but directly from your brain." Chu Yang said quickly. "Everything you said is right." Han Xiaoran stood upright and motionless. "Ever since you got injured, your cultivation hasn't improved at all, right?" Chu Yang asked. "No, there are still some signs of it slipping," Han Xiaoran said. "A martial saint expert is already considered to be at the peak. You fought with 2 martial saints consecutively within a year, but you didn't have any enlightenment?" Chu Yang asked again. "Yes." Han Xiaoran was very straightforward. "I had a state of mind, enlightenment, but I couldn't make any progress." "So you once suspected," Chu Yang was silent for a while and said, "you once went to the great elder of the Medicine Valley to verify it." "Yes," Han Xiaoran admitted. "What did the great elder of the Medicine Valley say?" Chu Yang asked. Han Xiaoran was silent. After going one round he still came back to this question. But compared to the question at the beginning, whether it was the state of mind or the atmosphere, it was completely different. This time this question was filled with murderous intent. Han Xiaoran was silent for a long time before he slowly said in a low voice, "At that time he said that this was like an invisible poison. But, he didn't know this poison. And he couldn't cure it." Chu Yang frowned and asked an irrelevant question, "Is the great elder of the Medicine Valley and the high priest the same person?" "No," Han Xiaoran replied lightly. "Yes," Chu Yang pondered. The two of them, one sitting and the other standing, were both in deep thought. No one said anything. The atmosphere in the room fell into a dead silence. Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan felt as if they were sitting on pins and needles, but they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. At this point, the truth was on the verge of being revealed. After a long time, Han Xiaoran turned around gently. His face was still calm and his eyes were still deep. He looked at Chu Yang deeply and asked, "Divine Dr. Chu, what do you think?" Chu Yang smiled bitterly. It was Chu Yang's original plan to stir up trouble here. It was Chu Yang's ideal goal to make use of the Southeast law enforcers to deal with the Shi clan. But there was a prerequisite for this goal. The law enforcer must not have any internal injuries. Then Chu Yang would use this as a pretext to make a fuss and use a despicable means to achieve his goal. But now he only felt sad. Because after he met Han Xiaoran, although the other party had always had murderous intent towards him, his integrity and toughness from the bottom of his heart made Chu Yang respect him. If Tong Wuxin really wasn't a spy, Chu Yang even intended to let this matter go. He could use endless despicable means to achieve his goal and achieve his expectations. But there was a psychological bottom line and prerequisite. He would only do this when dealing with despicable people and enemies. Facing an upright and righteous law enforcer like Han Xiaoran, an emotionless law enforcer, a filial son who still cherished his mother 1,300 years after her death, and an elder whose character was worthy of respect, Chu Yang couldn't bring himself to do this. However, the world was just so bizarre. Just when Chu Yang was about to give up, things took a turn for the worse. Everything was developing according to Chu Yang's expectations. It was impossible for him not to make use of it. What made him sad was that he couldn't cure Han Xiaoran's injury now. And Han Xiaoran was obviously a straightforward person who would rather break than bend. And after such a long time he no longer cared about life and death. He would never accept Tong Wuxin's threats, and would never accept Tong Wuxin's kindness. Once it was revealed, Tong Wuxin would definitely die. The battle between the Shi clan and the law enforcer would definitely start. Han Xiaoran would definitely die. Divine Dr. Chu? Han Xiaoran smiled and looked at Chu Yang. He said softly, I'm waiting for your answer. It would be a pity if the law enforcer were to die, Chu Yang said softly. Everyone wasn't stupid. Just this sentence alone was enough for them to understand. Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan's faces suddenly changed. They stood up and stared at Chu Yang, trembling all over. Yes, I understand now. Han Xiaoran's face didn't change. He walked slowly back to his seat and sat down. He stared at the green tea and said in a low voice, I, Han Xiaoran, started learning martial arts when I was young. At the age of 23 I became an emperor. At the age of 15 I became a monarch. It took me 1,200 years to reach the peak of the saint level. I'm only one step away from the supreme level. His words were heavy and so were the others. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. What kind of genius is he to become an emperor at the age of 23? It only took him 42 years to become a monarch from an emperor. But with such aptitude, it took him 1,200 years to reach the peak of the saint level from a monarch. Han Xiaoran's face relaxed. He poured himself a cup of tea and said, I became a law enforcer at the age of 30. I've killed 17,833 emperor-level villains, 150 monarch-level villains, and 107 saint-level villains. No one escaped and no one was wronged. He laughed. As a law enforcer, I can't avoid killing people. But I have a conscience book. Every time I kill a person I record it down. It's clear what crime they committed and why they were killed. Even after killing, I still have to investigate. For 1,200 years, I haven't killed anyone wrongly. My heart is at ease. Han Xiaoran smiled faintly. Xia Xinliang said in a hoarse voice, Director. Director. Han Xiaoran sat still. He flicked his sleeves and sneered proudly, I'm saying all this to say, I Han Xiaoran have a clear conscience. I'm not ashamed of anything. I can be dignified and unrestrained in the heavenly court. I can also face the king of hell in the netherworld. He sneered, Tong Wuxin wants to use such means to make me lower my head? You also have to persuade me to bear with it for the time being. It's fine before I know. But now that I know, how can I, Han Xiaoran, be someone who can be controlled by others? Chapter 820. Upon hearing this, Xia Xinliang's face was full of despair. Qin Baoshan's face was also gloomy. They had long known about Chief Enforcer Min Fa's unyielding temper, and wanted to use his unyielding temper to expose this conspiracy. But they never expected that after exposing the conspiracy, the price they had to pay was Chief Enforcer Min Fa's life. If they had known this earlier they would rather die than do this. Chu Yang was shocked. He had a clear conscience in his life, and he had no qualms about looking up to the heavens and looking down to the earth. In the heavenly court I can be dignified and unrestrained. In the netherworld I can also face the king of hell. What an upright and upright life. Do I really have to watch such a good man die? How pitiful was that? But I can't expose my identity. Chu Yang's heart was conflicted. Qin Baoshan sighed deeply and said, Chief Enforcer Min Fa, please reconsider. Chu Yang sighed and said, Chief Enforcer Min Fa's temper is really too unyielding. Han Xiaoran smiled and said, who doesn't yearn for life when death is near? For so many years, those who killed the chief enforcer under my command all begged for mercy when they were about to die. What? It's just because of this mortal world. I'm not an exception, he said quietly. But living depends on how you live. Dragging out an ignoble existence and living with a clear conscience are two different things. I've lived for more than 1,300 years with a clear conscience. Do I have to be restrained and listen to other people's orders at my last moment? What a joke. Even if it's a conspiracy, it's still not possible. Han Xiaoran picked up his teacup and said, "Tomorrow I'll rush back to the southeast headquarters and report to the Dharma Supreme. I'll completely clean up the southeast. Since Tong Wuxin dared to lay his hands on me, he definitely won't let off the others. Maybe some people have already started to work for him under his coercion. In the long run, won't the southeast belong to the chief enforcer Min Fa become the world of the Shi clan?" His expression was cold and hard as he said, "The Shi family secretly sent people down for 3 days and interfered in the battle at the Lake of Despair. After they returned, I suggested that they be punished, but they were covered up. This time, the Shi family won't have it easy in my hands." Xia Xinliang said, "Lord Xia Fa, this matter shouldn't be rushed. In my opinion, since Divine Dr. Chu can detect it, he might be able to treat it. If Chief Executive Fa fully recovers, then we can hide in the dark and pretend that we don't know anything. With the smallest price, we can completely eliminate the enemy. This lowly one believes that this is a foolproof plan." He raised his head. "If we have to pay the price of Head Enforcer Fa's precious body to eliminate the traitors, then in the future our entire southeast, without Head Enforcer Fa, what will happen? This humble one's heart chills just thinking about it." Han Xiaoran smiled and said, "Divine Dr. Chu can see it, but I didn't ask if it can be cured. Do you find it strange?" Xia Xinliang nodded. Han Xiaoran said, "If Divine Dr. Chu could cure him, he wouldn't be deliberately mystifying at this time. So, I decided not to ask so as not to embarrass Divine Dr. Chu. But the two of you insisted that I make it clear." Xia Xinliang was in despair at once. He looked at Chu Yang pleadingly and said, "Little brother, is Head Enforcer Fa's injury really incurable?" Chu Yang pondered. Seeing him pondering, Xia Xinliang's eyes lit up and revealed a hopeful look. "This poison of Head Enforcer Fa isn't an invisible poison, but a shadowless poison." Chu Yang pondered and said, "Although the shadowless poison isn't as cruel as the invisible poison, it's a kind of mixed poison. In the initial stage of the attack, it's exactly the same as the invisible poison. So, it's suspected to be a fake. This poison should be directly implanted into the body during the treatment. Because of this, it's particularly difficult to treat. And after a long time the brain has already begun to rot. Generally speaking, it's a terminal illness. In this case, even Tong Wuxin's annual treatment can't be delayed for too long. It definitely won't be delayed for more than 5 years. So, if there's any conspiracy, it must be within 5 years. Is there no hope at all for Head Enforcer Fa?" Xia Xinliang asked in despair. Chu Yang pondered and said, "Actually, there's still a way to treat Head Enforcer Fa's injury. But there's no such way." "What way?" Xia Xinliang was shocked. "The first way is the heavy pill of the Tribulation Swordmaster." Chu Yang frowned and said, "If there's a heavy pill, Head Enforcer Fa can not only recover, but also improve his martial power." Han Xiaoran smiled and said, "Divine Dr. Chu's words make me excited. But it's equivalent to not saying anything." Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "The second way is to use the force of extreme yin, extreme yang, extreme evil and extreme poison to completely suppress this shadowless poison. Then, a supreme martial artist will use a pure martial art to open the bridge between heaven and earth and force the shadowless poison out. Because the poison has already entered the brain and infected the heart meridians. Except for the supreme martial artist's ability to control it, no one below the level of a supreme martial artist can do anything about it. Moreover, Head Enforcer Fa is already a martial saint. No one below the level of a supreme martial artist can open his meridians." Chu Yang said. "Supreme martial artist, we have a few Head Enforcers. If it really doesn't work, Lord Dharma Supreme won't watch the Head Enforcer die so young. But those 4 heavenly treasures, the power of extreme yin, the power of extreme yang, the power of extreme evil, and the power of extreme poison, what are they?" Xia Xinliang asked. Han Xiaoran sighed sadly and said, "There's no such way." "What?" Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan asked at the same time. "The power of extreme yin is the mysterious ice jade paste of the great miracle medicine. The power of extreme yang is the mysterious yang jade marrow of the great miracle medicine. The power of extreme evil is the evil illusion mysterious jade of the great miracle medicine. The power of extreme poison is the heaven poison jade of the great miracle medicine. Han Xiaoran laughed and said, the mysterious ice jade essence has always only existed in legends. It said that many years ago the Diwu clan, which is a vassal of the Zhuge clan, once got the mysterious jade essence ginseng, but there's no evidence. So it was left unsettled. There's a piece of mysterious heaven divine essence in the headquarters of the head enforcers. Other than that, no one has seen the others in the past 10,000 years. Sha Xinliang lowered his head as if he had lost his parents. It was more difficult to find these 4 elixirs than to find the master of the tribulation sword. At least, there was a real master of the tribulation sword. But these 4 elixirs had always only existed in legends. Whether they really existed or not was still uncertain. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, actually the head enforcer Mr. Fa said too much. If the treatment of the shadowless poison requires 4 kinds of mysterious ice jade essence ginseng, then it's overestimating the shadowless poison. It only needs the accompanying creatures of the mysterious ice jade essence ginseng. For example, the profound ice jade core that comes with the profound ice jade paste, the profound yang jade core that comes with the profound yang jade essence, the evil illusion jade core that comes with the evil illusion profound jade core, and the heaven poison jade core that comes with the heaven poison jade crystal. Although Chu Yang said so, everyone still felt depressed. What's the difference between finding these 4 elixirs and finding those 4 elixirs? It's also as difficult as ascending to heaven. Han Xiaoran was silent for a while and said, illusory means that this is fate. Since this is the case, what I can do is to perish together with it. When he said the words, perish together, his face was calm but he paused after every word. Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, actually, Mr. Fa, you don't have to do this. I don't have the ability to cure your illness for the time being, but it's still possible to suppress it for a while. At this moment he finally made up his mind to help Han Xiaoran. Not for other reasons but for that sentence. If you have a clear conscience in your life, don't regret when you're about to die. Why should he care so much when facing such a man? Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan were both overjoyed. Sha Xinliang rushed over and grabbed Chu Yang's hand. His eyes were filled with tears. Little brother, you, oh little brother, he kept saying little brother, but his heart was moved and he couldn't say anything. Han Xiaoran looked at Sha Xinliang's moved expression and sighed softly. But his eyes were moist. A trace of warmth slipped from his eyes. His face also became gentle. Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, I can use the acupuncture technique to seal the decayed part at the back of the head and pierce the heart meridian to seal the lock. Then I can supplement it with medicine to put it to sleep. Finally, I can use extreme cold to suppress it. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. This method can guarantee 10 years of health. But if I use it again after 10 years, it can only guarantee 5 years. If I can't find the Tribulation Sword Master and the 4 miraculous medicines after 20 years, there's nothing I can do. Han Xiaoran smiled contentedly and said, I'm already satisfied with 2 years of time, let alone 20 years? A real man only needs to be carefree and do what he wants to do. 1 day is enough. He stood up and bowed deeply to Chu Yang. He said solemnly, I'm grateful for your kindness to grant me 20 years of life. Chu Yang nodded and took out an antique necklace. It looked like it had been worn for a long time as it was rusty. Below the necklace there were 2 small jade plates. Once they were separated they immediately changed. One of them was filled with fog and chilliness, the other was filled with heat waves. Chu Yang ordered the sword spirit to make it. With the sword spirit's ability, it was easy to make such an antique necklace. It looked like it was excavated from an ancient tomb thousands of years ago. The eyes of Sha Xinliang and the other 2 lit up at the same time. Han Xiaoran was shocked. Xian Ice Jade. Xian Yang Jade. Yes. Chu Yang said softly. He looked at the jade pendants with infinite preciousness and said, these 2 jade pendants were hung around the neck of a skeleton in the cave when I accidentally fell into the cave and obtained the inheritance of the medical book. I've always regarded them as treasures and have never shown them to anyone. As he said, he handed the necklace over. Deacon Fa, wear this necklace to protect your heart meridian. Although it can't expel poison, it can suppress the traceless poison. Then disperse your cultivation. With my acupuncture you'll be safe for 10 years. Han Xiaoran was touched and said, this is a priceless treasure. I'll accept your gift. How can I repay you? He did not decline pretentiously, nor did he hypocritically decline. Instead he generously accepted it. Chu Yang smiled. Deacon Fa, if you feel apologetic, I also have something that I need your help with. Han Xiaoran's face turned serious and he said, "Divine Dr. Chu, please say it." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Someone has invited me to a banquet tonight. I'm afraid that my life will be in danger if I go. But I can't not go. Deacon Fa, you'll be my guest. Take it as the fee for this visit. We're even." Han Xiaoran laughed and said, "Since you want a drink, I'll accompany you to drink to your heart's content tonight." Chapter 8:21. Although Han Xiaoran said so, he knew in his heart that he owed Chu Yang too much. But since Chu Yang didn't claim the credit, Han Xiaoran thanked him profusely, which would make him seem like a stickler for formalities. Friends should only be made in the future. It was better not to say anything than to say it now. So, he only remembered it in his heart and didn't say anything. He only changed the way he addressed them to elder brother and little brother to show that they were friends despite the difference in age. Sha Xinliang and the others knew the weight of Han Xiaoran's elder brother and little brother. They looked at Chu Yang with joy in their eyes. Chu Yang's heart was moved. Looking at the three's eyes, he suddenly felt warm. This kind of feeling had never arisen since he separated from Gu Duxing and the others. "Law enforcement master, I'm very honored to be called little brother by you," Chu Yang smiled. Han Xiaoran was silent for a while and said, "For so many years, ever since my brother disappeared and turned into a midnight dream, I, Han Xiaoran, have never called anyone brother. Law enforcement officers have great responsibilities and they can't form cliques." Han Xiaoran smiled bitterly. The human heart needs to be comforted. Even a heart of stone needs to be soft at times. This is a human need, not a transaction of interest. Han Xiaoran said in a low voice, "Just like how little brother didn't want to suppress it for me at the beginning, because you clearly know how much trouble you'll get into. But in the end I still resolutely took action. It's not because I, Han Xiaoran, have deep feelings for you, nor because I, Han Xiaoran, have promised you wealth and glory. It's just because I, Han Xiaoran, have been upholding justice for 1,200 years. This recognition is conscience," Han Xiaoran said seriously. "Especially the last word, conscience. What I, Han Xiaoran, value the most in my life is conscience. So, for this word I, Han Xiaoran, am willing to make friends with you." Han Xiaoran smiled gently. "Little brother, you've seen the part of my heart that outsiders can't see the most. And I've also seen your pure heart. You didn't save me because of my power and I didn't make friends with you because of your medical skills. So, if you don't mention the price, I won't mention it either." Han Xiaoran said, "When making friends, firstly it's pleasing to the eye and secondly it's in the heart. There's no point in talking too much, but a cup of wine is enough." "Well said." These words made Chu Yang radiant with joy. "Elder brother, tonight I will drink with you till we're drunk." Han Xiaoran nodded and smiled. "Who dares to deal with little brother?" Sha Xinliang asked anxiously. "I'm ashamed to say this." Chu Yang explained the whole matter, including his own background, the conspiracy back then, his current situation, and the Yi clan's intervention. A cold light flashed across Han Xiaoran's eyes and he said, "Yi Wubua? Yi 13? Chu Yang smiled and said, "You know this person?" Han Xiaoran was silent for a while before he said, "Yi Wubua is the 13th brother of the current clan master of the Yi clan. He's a gloomy and resourceful person. He always hides in the dark to scheme. I didn't expect him to be the mastermind behind this matter." He pondered for a moment and said, "It seems that the Yi clan has great ambitions." Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, "It doesn't matter if the Yi clan is powerful or what their conspiracy is. But this matter involves me, so I won't bother about them." Han Xiaoran said, "Little brother, you're very courageous." He pondered for a while and said, "I'll take on this matter for you. But, you have to be mentally prepared. That is, I'll take on the small part of the Yi clan for you. If this matter really involves the overall situation of the Yi clan, or if there's any long-term plan, and supreme martial artists are mobilized in the end, I won't be able to take it on. So, we have to be fully prepared when we do things." Han Xiaoran's words were very honest. Chu Yang also understood what he meant. Han Xiaoran could take on anyone below the level of a supreme martial artist. But if a supreme martial artist were to take action, Han Xiaoran could only pay with his life. But this was only the worst-case scenario. In fact, Han Xiaoran's words were absolutely foolproof. Although the heavenly layer was big, how many supreme martial artists were there? There was no doubt that the Yi clan had the cultivation of a supreme martial artist, and there should be more than one supreme martial artist in the Yi clan. But, if it wasn't a matter of life and death for the Yi clan, how would a supreme martial artist take action so easily? We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Chu Yang laughed. It's useless to think too much before it happens. It's better to take care of your body first. Elder brother, please enter the inner chamber and disperse your protective Shen technique. I'll suppress the shadowless poison for you first. Okay. Han Xiaoran said emotionally. When the lanterns were lit, the Lingyun Pavilion looked magnificent at night. Two youths were looking around in front of the Lingyun Pavilion, as if they were waiting for something. The top floor of the 7-story Lingyun Pavilion had 3 individual pavilions. It was named after the 3 stars gathering. Those who were able to attend the banquet not only represented wealth, but also the nobility of their status. The pavilion on the left was where Chu Feilong and Yi Wubua met last time. Now Yi Wubua and Chu Feilong were sitting opposite each other inside. In front of the two of them were Yi Wubua's 2 bodyguards. Yi Wubua had 4 bodyguards, but the other 2 were nowhere to be seen. Chu Feilong's face was full of nervousness. He kept wiping his sweat and muttered in his heart, "Why haven't they come yet? Why haven't they come yet?" On the main seat, Yi Wubua's face was gloomy and cold. He said lightly, "Why haven't they come yet? Chu Feilong, you've already exceeded the time limit that I gave you." Chu Feilong hurriedly said, 13th Master, please don't be angry. It's because the Hall of Justice went to invite Chu Yang. I think that's why Chu Yang is late. But since he's agreed, he should come." Yi Wubua snorted and said coldly, "For so many years I've never waited for anyone like this. I didn't expect to taste this kind of feeling for the first time in this small flat mountain ridge." Chu Feilong's face was full of cold sweat, and he didn't dare to say anything. At this moment voices could be heard. Someone had already entered the pavilion, and the sound of tables and chairs being pulled open could be faintly heard. That elder with a goatee pushed the door open and said softly, 13th Master, Sha Xinliang and the others from the Hall of Justice have entered the pavilion. There's Sha Xinliang, Qin Baoshan from the Hall of Justice, and another elder. Do you have any impression of that person? Yi Wubua asked. I haven't seen him before, the elder with a goatee said, but I think he should be an expert from the local Hall of Justice. A strange smile appeared at the corner of Yi Wubua's mouth and he said, It seems that Chu Yang is coming. He was silent for a while and praised, Chu Feilong, your nephew is really not simple. He's already expected that there'll be danger here, and he's already called for reinforcements in advance to support the situation. Chu Feilong smiled bitterly and said, I've never been on good terms with him. It's reasonable for him to have such scruples. After all, he feels that only Sha Xinliang and the others can protect him here. It's not strange for him to do so. Yi Wubua smiled. The elder with a goatee said, 13th Master, do you want to go over and greet him? Yi Wubua snorted and said, No need. He raised his eyebrows and said gloomily, If I Yi Wubua want to kill someone, I think Sha Xinliang won't dare to stop me. So what if I kill him in front of him? If I go over now and let Sha Xinliang know that I'm here, it won't be good. After this matter is over, I'll just inform him. Yes, the elder with a goatee didn't seem surprised at all. With the reputation of the 13th Master of the Yi clan, how would he be afraid of a mere law enforcement hall in the flat mountain ridge? At this moment, the sound of clothes fluttering in the air was heard, and a figure came in from the window. 13th Master, that Chu Yang is already on his way here. He's only a few thousand feet away from here. Yes, Yi Wubua said, Is he alone? Yes. He's wearing white clothes and walking slowly. His demeanor is very relaxed and free. The road to the underworld is short. It's also a good thing to be able to walk on it so easily. Yi Wubua's ghost fire-like eyes flickered slightly, and a cruel smile appeared on his lips. As Chu Yang walked, he looked at the flat mountain ridge at night and couldn't help but feel that it had a different flavor. When he saw Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao, the two of them had already been waiting anxiously. When they saw Chu Yang coming, they instantly felt as if a huge treasure had fallen from the sky. You're finally here. Even Big Brother didn't come. Since 2 brothers invited me, I naturally have to come, Chu Yang said. Let's go up. The 2 of them sandwiched Chu Yang between them and walked up. So anxious. Chu Yang smiled and said, 2 younger brothers are really enthusiastic. Chu Tinghu smiled sinisterly and said, Younger brother? Ah. Chu Yang, it's your good fortune to be able to call me younger brother in this life. When you walk on the road to the underworld in the future, don't forget this honor. Chu Yang was stunned and said, Younger brother Tinghu, what do you mean? We're brothers and blood is thicker than water. Fuck. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao scolded at the same time. Which one is your younger brother? You're a bastard with an unknown background. You're about to die without a complete corpse, but you're still dreaming. Chu Yang's eyes turned cold, and there was a faint blood-red killing intent flowing in them. Oh? What do you mean? Could it be that you've mistaken me for someone else? Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao knew that Chu Yang was going to die today, and they couldn't bear it anymore. They scolded him all the way and thought that Chu Yang had lost his cultivation and couldn't get rid of them. So, they actually became unscrupulous and scolded him continuously. Every time they scolded him, Chu Yang's face turned colder. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao were venting their anger, and wanted to humiliate Chu Yang more before he died. But the reason why Chu Yang had endured until now was to accumulate a reason for himself to kill them. Although they were unfilial and incompatible, blood was thicker than water after all. Chu Yang didn't feel that there was anything wrong with killing 10,000 outsiders, but Chu Yang didn't have any scruples about killing his blood-related cousins. But now, the scruples in his heart were disappearing little by little along with Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao's scolding. When he came to the front of the elegant room, a blood-red light flashed across Chu Yang's eyes. He finally figured out one thing. Enemies didn't differentiate between close and distant. Chapter 822. The title of the previous chapter is wrong. It should be Chapter 17. The latest chapter of the Holy Hall has reached 18. This chapter is only 18. The title can't be changed. Please forgive me. Chu Yang stood in front of the elegant room. He turned around and looked at Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao. His eyes were cold and sharp. Don't you two care about the kinship between us? He said in a low voice, I know that you two hate that my return may rob your interests. But you have to know that hatred is hatred. Our blood comes from the same source, but it can't be changed. Even if we fight against each other, we still have the same root. Coldness rose in Chu Yang's heart, and his killing intent spread. But he still controlled himself and said these words. Rather than saying that he was admonishing the two, it would be better to say that Chu Yang was forcing himself to kill. Because Chu Yang even knew how these two would answer. Was there a need to think about the answer? Sure enough, Chu Tinghu sneered and said sarcastically, kinship? Facing the huge interests of the whole clan, you still have the mood to talk about kinship. You're already at death's door. Can these words save you? Chu Yang, I have to admire you. You've been outside for 18 years and you've become stupid. Chu Yang smiled silently. He then muttered, you still have the leisure to talk about blood ties when you're faced with the enormous interests of the clan. You're already at death's door. Do you think that blood ties can save you? Then he smiled and said from the bottom of his heart, thank you for reminding me. A sturdy man appeared behind him and said coldly, 13th Master has been waiting for a long time. What are you waiting for? Chu Tinghu smiled and said, take him in now. As he said, he pushed Chu Yang's back. The door opened at this moment. Chu Yang saw Yi Wubwa at first glance. This person could be the culprit and mastermind behind the scenes that he had imagined countless times, and was most likely to cause him to lead a wandering life outside for 18 years. Yi Wubwa was dressed in black and had a thin face. When he looked over, Chu Yang's eyes seemed to be burning with a ghastly fire. In that instant, he could only hear the cries of ghosts, as if he had been born in a graveyard. You're Chu Yang? Yi Wubwa looked at him gloomily, but his voice was very gentle. In fact, after hearing it, people immediately felt a sense of familiarity in their hearts. Chu Yang's heart thumped. This Yi Wubwa actually tried to bewitch me when we just met. His voice clearly contained psychic fluctuations that had been brewing for a long time. They were very subtle and cautious. Clearly this was only the beginning. I'm Chu Yang. Chu Yang smiled gently. Second uncle, you're also here. Aren't you here to drink? And this is? Chu Feilong's face was as cold as ice. You still want to drink? Yi Wubwa waved his hands and a trace of a smile appeared in his cold eyes. He could clearly see that the young man who had just entered did not have any cultivation at all. Chu Yang? Yes, Chu Feiling's son. Ah, not bad, not bad. Yi Wubwa actually laughed and said, have a seat. Chu Yang nodded and sat down opposite him. You're brave and have a good temperament, Yi Wubwa praised. It's enough to comfort Chu Feiling that he's like this. The whole room was filled with an oppressive atmosphere. If ordinary people came in, they would have been scared to death. Just the invisible pressure alone would make people go crazy. But Chu Yang's expression didn't change in the face of several monarch-level experts. Just this kind of determination was already much better than ordinary people. It was no wonder that Yi Shisan had also praised him. Yi Shisan turned his head and said to Chu Feilong, this little one is stronger than your 3 sons. Chu Feilong's face twitched. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao were standing behind Chu Yang now. Their faces twitched and their eyes were full of hatred as they looked at Chu Yang's back. Yi Shisan looked at Chu Yang and said, "Maybe you don't know me. My surname is Yi and I'm from the Yi clan." Chu Yang's expression didn't change and he said, "You're indeed extraordinary." Yi Wubwa said, "My name is Yi Wubwa. I'm ranked 13th in the Yi clan. People in the Holy Hall call me 13th Master. Of course there are also people who call me Yi Shisan." Chu Yang nodded and didn't say anything. He knew that this was just Yi Shisan's opening speech. Since Yi Shisan had said this opening speech and gradually deepened the power of mental bewitchment, Yi Shisan wouldn't take action immediately. Instead he wanted to talk to Chu Yang. But Chu Yang had a rough idea of what he wanted to talk to Chu Yang about. "Chu Yang, I asked the two of them to call you here today because I want to ask you something." Yi Wubwa tapped the table lightly with his finger. The tapping sound was actually filled with a kind of ethereal and peculiar rhythm. Obviously, it had a peculiar effect of bewitching people. Just tapping the table like this was actually a kind of divine technique that could bewitch people's hearts. When Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao heard this sound, they instantly felt absent-minded. Chu Yang's eyes also gradually became perplexed. "That day someone went to kill you. 2 days ago, early in the morning." Yi Wubwa's voice was gloomy and gentle. "Is it?" Chu Yang shook his head and pinched his eyebrows gently, as if he wanted to get rid of that dizziness. He forced himself to support himself and said, "Yes, someone wanted to kill me." Yi Wubwa's finger tapped the table slowly with a constant rhythm. His voice was even gentler as he said, "Then how did that person die?" Chu Yang's eyes were perplexed. Looking at Yi Wubwa's finger tapping the table, he murmured, "How did that person die?" "Yes, how did that person die?" Yi Wubwa's eyes stared closely at Chu Yang's eyes. That person, is so fierce." Chu Yang's eyes revealed a trace of fear. "Fierce, but he's still dead." Yi Wubwa's eyes flickered strangely, emitting a faint red light. "Yes, he's dead. How did he die?" Yi Wubwa asked patiently. "I can't say." Chu Yang's eyes were gradually losing focus. From Yi Wubwa's point of view, he could clearly see that Chu Yang's pupils were dilating. Obviously he couldn't control his divine sense anymore. Chu Feilong also became nervous. After all, Chu Yang's answer would really reveal the biggest mystery in his heart. Who's behind Chu Yang? Why can he make the law enforcement officers lower their heads? Why can he turn danger into safety time and time again? He stared at Chu Yang nervously and pricked up his ears, not wanting to miss a single word. He even neglected that his two bodies were also swaying and sliding slowly to the ground. Yi Wubwa's guards behind him caught Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao and let them lie gently on the ground, so as not to disturb Yi Wubwa's hypnosis on Chu Yang. "Of course you can't say it to others, but it's okay to say it to me." Yi Wubwa's eyes flickered and his voice became softer and softer. "After all, he came to kill you but he's dead. Isn't it something to be happy about that you're still alive?" Chu Yang's face relaxed and he murmured, "Indeed, are you the one who killed him?" Yi Wubwa asked softly. "No." Chu Yang shook his head honestly. Every time he answered, there was a kind of trance lingering in his voice. "Well, you're not the one who killed him. I believe you," Yi Wubwa encouraged him. Chu Yang revealed a smile of being trusted. "Then he died in front of you, right?" Yi Wubwa asked again. "Yes," Chu Yang said, "he died very miserably." "Died very miserably?" Yi Wubwa asked with great interest, "How miserably?" Chu Yang laughed, with a kind of mysterious flaunting and a kind of pleasure from killing a powerful person. He even said with a smile of exultation, "He fell into an ambush, ha!" Yi Wubwa's eyes lit up and he said, "Fell into an ambush?" "Yes, so many of us attacked him at the same time. That guy thought that I didn't know anything and was full of complacency, so he was attacked by us at the same time." Chu Yang laughed naively. Speaking of this, Yi Wubwa's 4 guards looked a little ferocious and excited. "Old Third Ma, the truth of how you were killed is about to be revealed. We'll take revenge for you." "Impressive." Yi Wubwa praised. "This is really a good plan to deal with the enemy. But, was this ambush set up in advance?" Chu Yang rewarded him with a look as if he was looking at an idiot. "Nonsense, since it's an ambush of course it has to be set up in advance." Yi Wubwa said puzzledly, "But how did you know that this person was going to kill you? How can such an expert expose his whereabouts and purpose so easily?" Chu Yang was instantly amused and he said, "Of course this problem can't be solved by others. But to me there's no such concern at all." "What?" Yi Wubwa's voice became gentler and more delicate. Even his eyes became more and more amiable and warm. The sound of his fingers tapping on the table became softer and softer, but it also became more and more hurried. It was almost as if they were connected together. His fingers even formed a phantom on the table. "We have a spy," Chu Yang said happily. Chu Feilong's face changed greatly. He felt that something was wrong and wanted to stop Chu Yang. At the same time, the aura of 4 high-level monarchs locked onto him at this moment. It was as if 4 mountains were pressing on his body at the same time. Chu Feilong even had difficulty breathing. He couldn't even move his tongue, let alone speak. "So there's a spy," Yi Wubo said easily. "Of course." Chu Yang said excitedly, proudly and mysteriously, "You don't know. Everyone thinks that our Chu clan doesn't get along well with each other, so someone came to bribe us, especially my second uncle. He seems to be targeting me and wants to get rid of me." Actually what? Yi Wubo's voice was still gentle, but he couldn't help but breathe heavily. Some doubts also arose in his heart. "Actually, our Chu clan has been passed down for thousands of years. If we were so easily bribed, would there still be a Chu clan now?" Chu Yang smiled proudly. "Don't you think so?" Yi Wubo laughed. "You're right." Chu Yang said admiringly, "My second uncle has endured humiliation for so many years. What's the reason for that? It's really not easy for him, it's too hard for him." Yi Wubo suppressed his emotions that were about to explode. He sighed and said, "Yes, it's really not easy. It's really not easy." Chapter 823. On one side, Chu Feilong, who was suppressed by the 4 monarch-level forces, couldn't move at all. His face was full of despair and his eyes were full of deep hatred. Extreme fear had almost destroyed his sanity. He knew that as long as Yi Wubo believed Chu Yang's words, he would definitely die today. But now Yi Wubo obviously believed Chu Yang's words. Yi Wubo's belief came from his strong self-confidence. The Yi clan's triple soul-seizing technique was one of the top 3 interrogation secret techniques. It was comparable to the interrogation secret techniques of the law enforcement officers. In terms of details, it was even better. With Yi Wubo's monarch-level strength, if he still couldn't get the information he wanted by using the triple soul-seizing technique to deal with Chu Yang, a teenager who had no cultivation at all, or even got fake information, Yi Wubo felt that he should just dig a hole and bury himself. "I'm very interested," Yi Wubo knocked on the table and asked with great interest, "How did this second uncle of yours, who has not had it easy, arrange this trap?" Chu Yang's eyes also revealed a look of confusion and fear, which seemed to come from the bottom of his heart. "It's very easy to set up a trap. But you didn't know about it beforehand, right?" Yi Wubo sensitively sensed the confusion and fear in Chu Yang's eyes, and instantly, cleverly, came to a conclusion. "But you didn't know about it beforehand, right?" "No, who said that I didn't know?" Unexpectedly, Chu Yang actually objected to this statement. Yi Wubo was stunned. "I'm just curious. Those people who set up the trap aren't from our Chu clan." Chu Yang said confusedly and proudly, "They're my second uncle's friends." "Your second uncle's friends?" Yi Wubo instantly became serious. He had a feeling of dispelling the clouds to see the clear sky. "But, I don't know the true face of this mountain, but I'm in this mountain." He faintly felt that there was a big scheme behind this. "Yes," Chu Yang said seriously, "although I've only returned to the clan for a short period of time, I still know that there's no expert like the Sword Sovereign in our clan, let alone the Sword Sovereign." "That's reasonable." Yi Wubo had schemed against the Chu clan for so many years. How could he not know the strength of the Chu clan? Since when did the Chu clan have such a genius like the Sword Sovereign? "Then who is it?" Yi Wubo frowned. He seemed to be asking Chu Yang but also seemed to be talking to himself. "I only heard someone call him 7th Master." Chu Yang said, "I don't know which 7th Master it is." Yi Wubo was shocked. At this moment, his face showed an expression of shock, astonishment and sudden realization. Inside the room, the bodies of the 4 guards trembled at the same time, and their eyes were filled with hatred. The 2 words 7th Master caused a great shock to these experts. It even interrupted Yi Wubo's triple soul-seizing technique, causing the 4 experts to be caught off guard. Thus, the pressure from their imposing aura also relaxed a little. Chu Feilong was finally able to open his mouth and scream, "13th Master, I'm innocent. Don't believe this little bastard. I'm loyal to you, make him shut up." Yi Wubo's face was gloomy and cold. His chest was heaving up and down. A surge of anger and humiliation from being fooled was brewing like a volcano. A monarch-level expert slapped Chu Feilong's face. With a loud bang, Chu Feilong's face turned to one side, and half of his teeth fell to the ground. Sword Sovereign 7th Master. Its 7th Master, Yi Wubwa sneered. Gloomy ghost fire was flickering in his eyes. Hello, 7th Master Shao. Hello, he laughed wildly. I Yi Wubwa am really a fool. Oh ah, 7th Master, Sword Sovereign 7th Master Shao of the Shao clan. The genius of the Shao clan was of the same generation as Yi Wubwa. He was obsessed with swords since he was young. In the big clans he had a resounding nickname, Sword Maniac. The more Yi Wubwa thought about it, the more upset he felt. I've painstakingly planned for 18 years to control the Chu clan in the southeast region. In the future when something big happens, I'll use the Chu clan to completely cut off one of the Shao clan's supply bases and block the Shao clan's continuous supply routes. At the crucial moment I'll be able to stab the Shao clan in the back. For this step, Yi Wubwa had carefully planned and implemented it step by step. It could be said that he had spent a lot of time thinking about the future. Over the past few years as Chu Feilong gradually took over the power, he had also slowly gained some trust from the Shao clan according to his plan. He had even gained some authority over the Shao clan's trade routes. He was preparing to help Chu Feilong gain a firm foothold and fully support him to expand the results of the battle. In the future he would give the Shao clan a fatal blow. But he didn't expect to receive such a piece of news at this time. Chu Feilong had been in contact with the Shao clan. He even colluded with 7th Master Shao to kill his right-hand man, Old Third Ma. At this moment Yi Wubwa really wanted to vomit blood. At the same time, he recalled that he had previously sent a martial emperor to assassinate Chu Feiling at the request of Chu Feilong. That martial emperor was also a subordinate of the Yi clan, but he didn't come back either. Could it be that it was also Chu Feilong's conspiracy at that time? In this case, under his leadership the Yi clan thought that they had succeeded. But they were gradually used by the other party and sent to their deaths one by one. And he was still complacent about it? And his plan, which he thought was successful, was actually under the Shao clan's observation. Every step was observed by the other party. To think that he had been so careful and sneaky in his plan? In the eyes of the Shao clan he was definitely the #1 fool in the world. If he knew that they would laugh their heads off after seeing how diligent he was. Thinking of this, Yi Wubwa was so embarrassed that he almost wanted to commit suicide. Yi Wubwa looked straight at Chu Feilong. His eyes and face were ferocious and even his limbs started to tremble. With his cultivation he actually behaved like this. It could be seen how humiliated he was. Chu Feilong good. What a good second Master Chu. What a good second Master Chu, Yi Wubwa nodded heavily. I've really belittled you. Chu Feilong looked at him hopelessly. His eyes were full of pleading but he couldn't say a word. On the other side, after losing Yi Wubwa's triple soul seizing technique, Chu Yang lay on the table softly, as if he had already fainted. This was the most normal reaction after using the triple soul seizing technique. Chu Feilong, I really don't understand. Yi Wubwa shook his head with all his might to the extent that his neck made cracking sounds. Then he nodded his head with all his might as if he was going to smash his head onto the ground. I've treated you very well. Chu Feilong looked at him pleadingly. 10 years ago you were being chased. I only knew that you were Chu Feilong after I saved your life. After that, I realized that you were ambitious so I supported you fully to fight against your elder brother. For this reason, I didn't hesitate to use the men of sacrifice of the Yi clan to kill Chu Feiling and his wife, forcing them to the lower 3 heavens. They were separated from their wives and couldn't recover from this setback. And you also took the opportunity to take control of the Chu clan. Yi Wubwa sneered self-mockingly. After that, I removed the 4 stewards of the Chu clan who were most loyal to your elder brother and cleared all your obstacles. Just last year, when you had completely stabilized your position and started to cooperate with the Shao clan, our Yi clan paid the price of 3 experts and successfully caused your father, Chu Xiongqing, to be seriously injured. Then the power fell into your hands. Then we took advantage of the time when your elder brother went out to look for medicine and received your request to send a martial emperor to kill Chu Feiling. Today we're still doing our best to plan for you to remove the last obstacle. Chu Yang is ready to let you take control of the Chu clan and become the clan master. You're ready to do something big. Yi Wubwa gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. His malicious eyes widened. All these are for you. We're all helping you. The matters of our Yi clan haven't even started. And you actually colluded with the Shao clan. Yi Wubwa laughed. He exhaled and shook his head. You are really scheming and scheming. Yi Wubwa really didn't realize that you, Chu Feilong, are actually such a great person. Chu Feilong looked at him sadly and hopelessly. His eyes had already turned gray. He knew that he was finished. He was completely finished. Yi Wubwa didn't even give him a chance to defend himself. Fortunately, I discovered it early. Yi Wubwa shook his head and rejoiced. Otherwise, wouldn't my bones be buried by you in the southeast? He exhaled heavily and stared at Chu Feilong. Suddenly he screamed from his throat, "Don't look at me with such a gaze. If you continue to look, I'll dig out your eyeballs." Chu Feilong struggled anxiously, but he couldn't move. "You're still looking? You're still looking? Fuck you." Yi Wubwa gritted his teeth. His eyes were bloodshot and he finally exploded. He stretched out his right hand and inserted 2 fingers into Chu Feilong's eye socket fiercely. Blood splattered everywhere. Red and black splattered out of the eye socket. The pressure from the 4 martial monarchs couldn't suppress Chu Feilong's miserable howl at this moment. Chu Feilong's 2 eyeballs were thrown to the ground and rolled around. Chu Feilong's miserable howl had turned into a painful gasp. He was suppressed by the 4 martial monarchs again and couldn't make any sound. He could only silently bear this torture of having his eyeballs dug out. The saddest thing was that at this moment, even fainting had become an extravagant wish for him. At one side, Chu Yang's body, which was leaning on the table, trembled slightly. All sorts of feelings welled up in Chu Yang's heart. At one side, 2 horrified screams were heard. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao woke up at this moment. Their minds were only disturbed by the aftermath of the triple soul seizure, and their spirits weren't seriously restrained. But when they opened their eyes, they saw this horrifying scene. They couldn't help but scream out in terror. Chu Feilong heard their screams and struggled even more violently. He didn't know where he got the strength from, but he suddenly broke free from the suppression of the 4 martial monarchs. He screamed in despair, "Huer Jiao, run away quickly," to be continued. Chapter 824. Part 7. Chapter 100, Humans Can't Lose Their Conscience. Part 7, Chapter 100, Humans Can't Lose Their Conscience. Chu Feilong knew that he was finished. But when he heard his son's screams, he remembered that his 2 sons were in the same danger as him. "Oh!" Dash and Chu Feilong screamed desperately. The 4 monarch-level guards were enraged at the same time. They exerted more force to suppress Chu Feilong. But Chu Feilong seemed to have thrown caution to the wind at this moment. Blood spurted out from his mouth. He broke his heart meridians and unleashed all his vitality. He struggled and shouted, "Escape! Skip! Escape! Teach him a lesson. Make him shut up. Don't let him die so easily." Yi Wubwa's face darkened as he ordered coldly. The 4 agreed and attacked at the same time. Chu Feilong screamed as he punched and kicked Chu Feilong. But he still mustered all his strength and shouted, "Huer Jiao, skip, skip. You must remember. In the future you must." He mustered all his strength and spat out blood and broken teeth. "You must be a good person in the future." This Chu Feilong had used all kinds of schemes in his life. He even schemed against his father and elder brother. It could be said that he had done all kinds of bad things. However, at the moment when he knew that he had no luck and that he had reached a dead end, the words he shouted out were actually to educate his son. "You must remember, you must be a good person in the future. Teach him a good lesson." Yi Wubwa looked at Chu Feilong cruelly and happily. Chu Tinghu and Chu Tingjiao screamed wildly. They jumped up and wanted to rush out. Yi Wubwa stretched out his palms. His arms and palms seemed to have grown out at this moment. He had already grabbed the 2 of them back and slammed them onto the ground. Chu Feilong was no longer in his human form. He still struggled and shouted, "Chu Yang! Chu Yang! They're your younger brothers. They're your younger brothers. I beg you, please save them, save them. I'll repay you in my next life. I'll repay you." Chu Yang's heart was filled with grief. He didn't even know how he should react. From what Yi Wubwa had just said, to the things that Chu Feilong had done in his life, the 18 years of suffering that his parents had suffered, the 18 years of wandering outside, the death of his clan's backbone, and his grandfather's injury. They all had their answers. Everything in front of him was created by him. He made use of Han Xiaoran, Xia Xinliang and the others' analysis and intelligence in the afternoon to successfully divide and drive a wedge between Yi Wubwa and Chu Feilong. Until now, it could be said that he had achieved his goal. So many years of suffering, so many years of pain, and the hatred and mystery of 2 lifetimes were all compensated at this moment. Everything came to light. He had finally gotten his revenge. Logically speaking, he should feel relieved and happy. Chu Yang himself also felt that he should be very relaxed and happy. However, in his heart, he did not feel the slightest bit of joy from taking revenge. Instead, there was an oppressive heaviness. It was as though his soul was being interrogated at this moment, and he was also being tortured. All sorts of emotions welled up within him, and he could feel the joys and sorrows of life. In that instant he didn't know what to feel. "Stop!" Yu Wubo shouted coldly. The four martial monarchs stopped at the same time. "I just realized that there are two of your sons here." "Ah." Yu Wubo laughed. "You're called Chu Tinghu and you're called Chu Tingjiao?" He smiled cruelly. "I won't kill all of you, but only one of you can live." With a clang, he threw the two swords on the ground and laughed coldly. "Pick up your swords. Kill your brothers and kill Chu Fei Long. Then, the one who kills him will be able to live." After he said this, the entire room became silent. Even Chu Fei Long, who was on the verge of death, and the four guards opened their mouths in shock. Yu Wubo's plan was extremely vicious. "Yu Wubo, you're so vicious. You're so vicious." Chu Fei Long screamed miserably. His face was hideous. Chu Tingjiao looked at the shining swords on the ground. His whole body trembled and his face turned pale. He retreated step by step. Chu Yang couldn't help but jump up. But at this moment, an unforeseen event happened. Chu Tingjiao roared. He took a big stride forward and grabbed the long sword on the ground. Without any hesitation, he turned his hand and stabbed the sword into Chu Tingjiao's heart fiercely. Chu Yang was so shocked that he couldn't react. Even Yi Wubo, who was the initiator of this, was dumbfounded. He was in a state of shock. The four guards opened their mouths even more. Chu Fei Long lay on the ground on the verge of death. He only heard a loud roar and then a chi sound. His eyes were already blinded and he couldn't see anything. He could only turn his head in vain and ask anxiously, "What happened? What's happening?" Blood spurted out from Chu Tingjiao's mouth. Chu Tingjiao's young face was filled with fear and shock. He lowered his head and looked at the swords in his mouth. Then he looked up at his elder brother in disbelief. You. The muscles on Chu Tinghu's face twitched. His lips trembled. "Tingjiao, don't blame me. If I don't kill you, everyone will die. This is our chance, our only chance." On the ground, Chu Fei Long finally understood what was happening. He spurted out blood and his heart ached. "Chu Tinghu, you." Chu Tinghu trembled all over. "Don't blame me, father. You always teach us that we must be vicious and merciless in our lives. We should do it if we can. Otherwise, we won't even be able to catch up with the hot shit. This is my life. Decades of life. I don't want to die." Then you'll kill me?" Chu Tingjiao's pupils were dilated. He struggled to ask the last sentence. "Tingjiao, you're still young. You don't know how fun this world is. You don't know how much power there is." Chu Tinghu tilted his head. His expression became more and more perverse. However, his body stopped trembling gradually. "Tingjiao, you don't know anything." "I know. If you kill me, it's meaningless to live on. So, I have to kill you?" "Tingjiao, we're brothers from the same mother. You can go in peace. You can fight for a chance to live for me. You can die with a smile." Chu Tingjiao looked at his elder brother blankly. His eyes were dilated. Finally, he closed his eyes. Before he died, he only spat out two words, "He." With a swoosh, Chu Tinghu pulled the blood-stained sword out of his brother's mouth. Seeing the blood dripping down, his body trembled again. He turned around and looked at Yi Wubo. 13th Master, do you mean what you said?" Yi Wubo looked at him faintly. He laughed weirdly. "Now, even if I don't mean what I said, you can't do anything about it. So, if you want to live, you can only trust me. Now kill Chu Fei Long for me." Chu Tinghu roared towards the sky. He gritted his teeth and panted heavily. "I want to live. I believe you. Believe me. Then I'll kill your father." Yi Wubo's eyes were cold. Chu Tinghu trembled. He turned around blankly. He lifted up the blood-stained sword slowly and pointed it at Chu Fei Long. "Father, please forgive me." Chu Fei Long only felt that his breath was stuck in his mouth. He was so angry that he couldn't say anything. You, cough, cough, cough." He coughed violently as he was moved. Chu Tinghu stepped on the blood on the ground. That was the blood of his father and younger brother. He walked over step by step. "Father? I have no choice. I want to live. Please help me. You're blind anyway." Chu Fei Long cried loudly. "Retribution. Retribution. I regret it so much. I regret it so much. I regret it so much." At this moment, he recalled the time when he framed his elder brother and caused his elder brother to be separated from his wife. His elder brother had suspected him for a long time. But every time his elder brother saw him, his elder brother's eyes were filled with pain. He recalled that he colluded with outsiders and caused his father to be poisoned. When his father was dying, his father's eyes were filled with pain as he looked at him. Then he felt the pain in his heart now. Chu Feilong was disheartened. Chu Tinghu stood in front of his father. His face changed continuously and became more and more ferocious. Suddenly he roared, "Father, I'll send you on your way. Have a safe journey." He lifted the sword and stabbed it down. It stabbed deeply into Chu Feilong's mouth. His heart. Chu Feilong didn't even have the slightest intention of struggling or dodging. As he felt the coldness of the sword piercing into his chest, a sad smile appeared on his face. He sighed deeply and said, "As a person, I can't lose my conscience. There will really be retribution. Now, I really believe that." In his mind he recalled the way his father had looked at him back then. "Feilong, tell me honestly, did you do something to your big brother?" "No. Father, why would I do such a thing? That's a serious crime of killing one's own kin. Father, I really don't know where to start from." "Are you sure? It's really not." "Father, I swear that if I did this, I'll die under the sword of my own son." Chu Feilong's mind quickly replayed the past. He didn't know why, but he didn't remember anything at this moment. He only remembered this scene. Then he sighed. He wanted to say, "Heaven really has eyes. Retribution," but he couldn't say it. His throat made gurgling sounds and he finally took his last breath. His body trembled and there was no sound. Chu Tinghu's body trembled, and his sword fell to the ground. He turned around and revealed a flattering smile. 13th Master, can I leave now?" Yi Wubo looked at him and the ghostly fire in his eyes flickered. He said, "You can leave now." Chu Tinghu said, "Thank you." He didn't even look at the corpses of his father and brother. He turned around and left. Yi Wubo looked at his back and said, "Chu Tinghu, you're very dangerous. You're also a talent. If you cooperate with me, I'll be at ease. Furthermore, I can give you something that your father didn't even get before he died." Yi Wubo actually proposed to recruit Chu Tinghu at this moment, but his eyes flickered with killing intent and scruples. Obviously, Chu Tinghu's cruelty and viciousness, and Wyan's unscrupulous behavior made this 13th Master of the Yi clan feel danger. Second update. I continue to write. Third update. Begging for votes. Chapter 825. People like Chu Tinghu no longer had any humanity. He was like a viper through and through. Anyone who saw him would shudder with fear. Holy Hall, but Chu Tinghu paused and immediately turned around. He knelt down and said, "I'm willing to serve you, 13th Master." Yi Wubo's eyes were filled with more scruples. He said, "Are you sincere?" Chu Tinghu said, "Yes. This humble one is willing to be at 13th Master's beck and call." What? Life is nothing more than power and beauty. There are many things that others can't give you. You need to fight for it yourself. To work hard. And now, since 13th Master has given me this opportunity, I'll never let it go. Chu Tinghu said. "I'm your father's murderer." Yi Wubo stared at him coldly. "I killed my father," Chu Tinghu said. Yi Wubo stared at him for a while. Then he waved his hand and said, "You can go." Chu Tinghu kowtowed respectfully and said, "I'll be waiting for 13th Master's orders anytime and anywhere." Then he retreated. Looking at Chu Tinghu's back, the elder with a goatee said, 13th Master, are you letting him go just like that?" "Yes." Yi Wubo looked at the direction where Chu Tinghu left. "This little is too dangerous." The elder with a goatee shivered. There was a kind of coldness that came from the bottom of his heart. He killed his own father and younger brother just like that. This little one is a talent. If he can survive for a long time in the future, he'll definitely be an ambitious and ruthless person. Yi Wubo said heavily, he was just an idiot in the past. But today he's really become an ambitious and ruthless person. It's a pity to kill such a talent. "But 13th Master, after all, you're his father's murderer," the elder with a goatee said. "In such a person's heart, there's no such thing as his father's murderer." Yi Wubo said coldly, "If one day he's fully fledged and his strength surpasses mine, then he'll lay his hands on me without hesitation. But before his wings are fully grown, he will be more obedient than a dog in front of me." Yi Wubo's eyes flashed with sinister light. If this little one is used well, he'll be a mad dog. And an extremely obedient mad dog at that. "This mad dog is more useful than Chu Feilong," Yi Wubo said solemnly. The elder with the goatee hesitated for a while and finally said, 13th Master, I feel that Chu Feilong's matter isn't so simple." Yi Wubo said, "Oh?" The goatee hesitated. At that time, we were all furious. 13th Master, you too? But, we didn't give Chu Feilong a chance to defend himself from the start, we just let him die like that. Now that I think about it, it's a little thoughtless. Yi Wubo frowned and started to ponder. If Chu Feilong is really guilty, why would he let his son lure Chu Yang here? The elder with the goatee said, I don't understand this point. Are you saying that I believed only one side of the story? Yi Wubo asked slowly. Now that he was furious, his heart seemed to be a little empty. Yi Wubo's anger and shame had also come to an end with Chu Feilong's death. His mind gradually became more flexible and he muttered, Indeed, there seems to be something wrong. As he spoke, he carefully thought about it and said slowly, Under the triple soul-seizing technique, will there be any lies? This was a question that no one could answer. Because only the direct descendants of the Yi clan could cultivate the triple soul-seizing technique. Although the other 4 people knew that this technique was very powerful, they didn't know how powerful it was. Yi Wubo pondered for a while and said, Our Yi clan has been established for thousands of years. The triple soul-seizing technique has always been a powerful weapon. It's always foolproof. How can there be a mistake? There's no mistake. Yi Wubo's eyes turned sharp. He looked at the elder with the goatee and suddenly said sternly, It's already a big mistake for you to have such thoughts and suspect my technique. Although Yi Wubo was clever, he was headstrong and self-opinionated. At this moment, the doubts in his heart were completely covered by his strong self-confidence. So, another person said, This matter is really done by the Shao clan. Old Third Ma was really killed by 7th Master Shao? Yi Wubo said coldly, Besides 7th Master Shao, that bastard, is there a second Sword Emperor in the entire southeast region? The elder thought, 7th Master Shao isn't the only Sword Emperor in the Shao clan. It seems that there are a few elders in the Shao clan whose cultivation is higher than 7th Master Zhao's. They are all Sword Emperors. But he was reprimanded for his suspicion just now. If he were to say it now, he would probably suffer even more. So he could only swallow it down. Then, how should we deal with this Chu Yang? Another person pointed at Chu Yang, who was lying on the table silently. Kill him. Yi Wubo didn't even blink. Yes, the elder with the long face answered and was about to take action. After being reprimanded just now, of course he had to perform well now. Kill? Aren't you too ruthless? A voice sounded, Yi Wubo, are you going to exterminate the Chu clan here? His voice was not loud, but the 5 members of the Yi family in the room felt dizzy at the same time. Obviously, the cultivation of this person was already shockingly high. He was definitely a martial saint. Yi Wubo's pupils shrank and he shouted, Who is it? The door opened with a creak. 2 people stood at the door. The one in front was an elder with a white face and no beard. His face was like a piece of stiff iron. He had a square face, a straight nose and a square mouth. He looked dignified without being angry. Once he stood at the door, he naturally had a decisive and incorruptible posture. This person was said to be an elder, but his hair was black, his face was white and his skin was smooth. He was more like a middle-aged man. Behind him was the commander of the law enforcement hall, Sha Xinliang. Han Sharon's gaze was calm. With his hands behind his back, he walked in slowly. Sha Xinliang followed closely behind him. Yi Wubo's pupils shrank suddenly. His eyes revealed scruples and puzzlement. It turns out that Law Enforcement Master Han has come personally. E13th is really unexpected. When he said this, the 4 guards' bodies trembled. It turns out to be him. The leader of the law enforcement officers in the southeast region of the upper 3 heavens. Han Shaoran. No wonder Yi Wubo also addressed himself as E13th. If it was in the past, Yi Wubo would be angry if someone mentioned this name. Well, Yi Wubo, you came to the southeast region to kill people? Han Shaoran walked in slowly. Wherever he passed, the corpses and blood on the ground would automatically separate, revealing the smooth ground. He snorted coldly and sneered, How dare you? Have you told me that you killed people in the southeast region? Yi Wubo smiled apologetically, Law Enforcement Master, this is a big hat. I can't bear it. Han Shaoran flicked his sleeves, Then how do you explain the 2 people on the ground? Yi Wubo laughed, Law Enforcement Master must have heard it just now. These 2 people are my men, but they betrayed me. I'm just punishing traitors. It has nothing to do with killing people. He smiled and said, If I knew that Law Enforcement Master was just next door, I wouldn't be so rash. Punishing traitors? Han Shaoran's face was cold and hard. He pointed at Chu Yang, This young man is also your traitor? Yi Wubwa said straightforwardly, that's not the case. Since the law enforcement master has stepped forward, I'll let him go. Just let him go? Han Xiaoran frowned. Yi Wubwa muttered in his heart, what exactly does this Han Xiaoran want to do? Why does he look like he's unwilling to let him go? But no matter what, he wouldn't dare to act rashly when he met Han Xiaoran in the southeast region. Yi Wubwa was very clear that even though he was a member of the Yi clan, and this identity was extremely respected, even the other law enforcement masters in the world region had to be wary of the Yi clan's power when they met him. But Han Xiaoran was a special case. When Han Xiaoran wanted to kill someone, he never looked at the clan or power, but only looked at the crime. If he thought that someone should be killed, not to mention that he was the 13th prince of the Yi clan, even if his elder brother, who was the clan master, was here, this Han Xiaoran would still kill him. This guy was a one-track-minded person. That was why Yi Wubwa behaved very honestly. Because as long as Han Xiaoran gave an order, even if he could leave this place alive, he wouldn't be able to fly out of the southeast region. Then, law enforcement master means. Yi Wubwa swallowed his anger and said, you've killed someone here. You have to give me an explanation. Han Xiaoran said faintly but firmly, and you've killed a member of the Chu clan. Although the Chu clan is only a small clan, it's also a power that's protected by the law enforcement officers. What right do you have to kill him? You've lured others to be spies and killed them once the matter was exposed. How dare you talk about punishing a traitor? Han Xiaoran looked at Yi Wubwa coldly. 13th Prince Yi, I think it's better for you to follow me back and go through a trial. Go through a trial? Yi Wubwa was in a dilemma. If the 13th master of the Yi clan was caught by the law enforcement officers and went through a trial, it would be a big joke. How would he have the face to meet others in the future? Then I'll compensate you for your loss. Yi Wubwa gritted his teeth and said, I'll do whatever you say. As long as you can give us a way out and give the Yi clan some face today. 10,000 purple crystals. Han Xiaoran said faintly. No problem. Yi Wubwa agreed readily. Yi Wubwa knew that since Han Xiaoran had stated the price, even if he hesitated for a moment, he would have to go through a trial. So, he agreed without any hesitation, I'll send 10,000 purple crystals to the law enforcement hall later. Good. Han Xiaoran said, Xinliang, send 5,000 purple crystals to the Chu clan when the purple crystals arrive. Sha Xinliang bowed and said, yes, sir. Han Xiaoran turned his head and looked at Yi Wubwa. I'll settle this matter with the Chu clan for you. You can leave now. Yi Wubwa scolded in his heart. What can happen to the Chu clan? Even if the Chu clan knows about it, will they dare to settle accounts with the Yi clan? They actually need you to settle it, but on the surface he said respectfully, since that's the case I'll have to trouble you. I'll repay your great kindness in the future. The four people from the Yi clan heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. They bade farewell to Han Xiaoran and walked out in a single file. They were like a group of roosters who had lost a fight. Seeing that they had walked away, Han Xiaoran patted Chu Yang's shoulder. Why are you still pretending? They've all left. Third update. Begging for monthly votes. My monthly votes are getting further and further away. I'm very sad. Chapter 826. Chu Yang raised his head slowly. Han Xiaoran's face turned serious when he saw Chu Yang. Saint Hall Chu Yang's face was a little pale, as if he had just woken up from a nightmare. He forced a smile and said, Elder brother, you've come in time. Han Xiaoran sighed softly, do you feel upset? Chu Yang smiled bitterly and nodded, yes. The three of them all deserve to die. It's not that I haven't killed anyone before and this time it's for revenge. But, seeing them die in front of me like this, I still don't feel good in my heart. Han Xiaoran smiled understandingly and said, I understand this feeling. The reason why you feel upset is because you are still a human and not a heartless beast like Chu Tinghu. Chu Yang smiled bitterly and said, I thought that I'm a heartless killer who treats my enemies like pigs and dogs. But I didn't expect that I'm really not. Han Xiaoran was silent for a while and said, actually, everyone treats human lives like grass and is indifferent and heartless. Everyone treats all living things as nothing, and is absolutely heartless and selfish. It's just like the world we live in. Every day hundreds of thousands or even millions of people will die. And those people's deaths are just a number in our eyes and in everyone's eyes. What can they do? But once the people around you have an accident or are killed or die of illness, you'll feel upset for years. This is simply human nature. Chu Feilong has been dealing with your father by hook or by crook for so many years. But, As long as your surname is Chu, no matter whether you return to your clan or not, you'll feel very strange and subtle when you face him. This has nothing to do with hatred. This is kinship, Han Xiaoran said. Kinship? Chu Yang wanted to sneer but he couldn't. He said, what kinship can I have with Chu Feilong? This kinship comes from blood. Just because you think there isn't, it doesn't mean that there isn't. Han Xiaoran laughed and said, blood ties are a very wonderful thing. Because your surname is Chu. Chu Yang pondered and said, do you mean? I understand now. Han Xiaoran looked at him with a smile. Oh? Chu Yang chuckled and said, actually Chu Feilong and I are like this. As long as he's alive, I'll do everything I can to kill him. But after killing him, I didn't feel good because no matter how bad he was still my grandfather's son and my father's brother from the same mother. This is kinship. Han Xiaoran placed his warm palm on Chu Yang's shoulder and said, that's right. Although it's a roundabout way of thinking, it's still true kinship. The reason why you're upset isn't because of Chu Feilong. It's because he is your uncle. This was something that would never change, be it life or death or enmity. As long as kinship exists, then no matter how much he betrays and hurts you, this kinship will not disappear. It will only change from warmth to pain, just like the pain you are in now. Chu Yang nodded. He had a feeling of enlightenment. Han Xiaoran said deeply, kinship, haha, even Chu Feilong's kinship isn't much worse than anyone else's. Before he died, the only thing on his mind was the safety of his son. Isn't this kinship? Chu Yang sighed deeply. Han Xiaoran said, I've been a law enforcer for many years. Every evil person that I've killed deserves to die 10 times. But, do you know, as long as they have family members, everyone will be extremely sentimental towards their family members. Before they died, they would beg me to arrange for their family members after knowing that they have no hope of surviving. How can kinship change because of good and evil? Chu Yang felt the same way and said, that's right. Kind people have love in their hearts. Evil people's hearts aren't just a piece of desert. That's right. What you said is very reasonable. So, after I kill them, I'll only confiscate 80% of their property. As for the remaining 20%, no matter how much it is, I'll leave it for their family members. Han Xiaoran sighed, if there's no pity or reverence in law enforcement, it's just a privilege. Chu Yang said from the bottom of his heart, elder brother's law enforcement is really full of pity and benevolence. Han Xiaoran smiled with a clear conscience. This is the biggest reason why I feel that I have a clear conscience. Chu Yang smiled. Net, let me tell you a story, Han Xiaoran said with a smile. Okay. Chu Yang knew that anything that came out of the mouth of such an expert would be filled with a different charm or state of mind. Often it would have a profound meaning. Since Han Xiaoran told him this at this moment, he must have his own intentions. There was once a third-grade monarch-level expert. I won't say his name here. Han Xiaoran recalled, he was obsessed with martial arts and neglected his newly married wife, causing her to have an affair with his best friend. This caused his temperament to change greatly, and he became extremely vicious from then on. He killed his best friend and imprisoned his wife for 10 years. For 10 years he didn't even let his wife die, not even if she died of illness. He just kept her imprisoned. In the end he fell into my hands. Do you know what his last request was before he died? Chu Yang asked, what? Han Xiaoran let out a long sigh. Before he died, he begged me to let his wife go and give all his wealth to his wife. Then he asked me to ask for forgiveness from his wife. He said that he had let her down in his life. Han Xiaoran smiled bitterly. Tell me, is this man too spineless, too hateful, too pitiful, too humiliating, too vicious, and too heartless? Chu Yang smiled bitterly. This question was really not easy to answer. This man imprisoned his wife for 10 years and he could be said to be vicious. But his life was also ruined because of this matter, and he could be said to be pitiful. He actually asked for forgiveness from the woman who betrayed him before he died, and it was simply humiliating. But who would know the pain of such a man in his life? If he didn't love his wife, why would he imprison her for 10 years? Wouldn't it be neat to kill her with one strike? He didn't kill her because of love. If he didn't hate his wife, why would he imprison her for 10 years? Imprisonment was also because of hate. Who could differentiate between love and hate? Chu Yang mulled over this story. This ordinary and even somewhat sorrowful story was filled with a kind of inexplicable feeling. This was the binding of love and hate. It really made one's mood depressed. But it also made one sigh sadly. This man can't let go, Chu Yang sighed. Let go. Can't let go? Han Xiaoran let out a deep roar. His voice was like thunder in this narrow space filled with the smell of blood. Chu Yang's whole body shook, and he suddenly felt as if he was enlightened. A cool feeling poured down from his head and he said, "Yes. The key is to let go. I can accept it. When it's time to let go, let go." Han Xiaoran smiled cheerfully. "If you can't let go, it's painful. If you let go, you'll be at ease. Actually, whether you let go or not, depends on whether you're willing to torture yourself. Do you want to torture yourself?" "Yes, when it's time to let go, let go." Chu Yang laughed heartily. He only felt that his mood was very good, and he was very happy. Am I, Chu Yang, such a stupid person who tortures himself? Han Xiaoran also laughed happily. Seeing that Chu Yang had let go of the knot in his heart, he finally felt relieved. He laughed and said, "Yes, just because you said to let go, it's really good. Since you're not a stupid person, then let's go. I'll accompany you to drink." "Then, the corpse?" Chu Yang was a little hesitant. He was thinking about how the clan would react if he sent the corpse back. "It's not suitable for you to go home now," Han Xiaoran said. "If you bring the corpse back home now, then no matter how innocent you are, it'll be a huge blow to your clan." "I'll help you settle this matter," Han Xiaoran said. "Sha Xinliang will handle it and send the corpse back. No matter how unwilling and uncomfortable you are tonight, you can't go back." He smiled. "With me here, you can't go back either." "Then how do you conclude this matter for the clan?" Chu Yang asked. "Killed by Yi Wubo from the Yi clan." Han Xiaoran said, "This matter has nothing to do with you." Chu Yang smiled bitterly. "Elder brother, you've broken the law for me this time, and you've even given false testimony." Han Xiaoran smiled. "Not only that, I've also helped the evildoer." Chu Yang was puzzled. "Bring him in." Han Xiaoran turned back and shouted softly. Qin Baoshan, who hadn't appeared all this time, strode in. In his hand he was carrying a person who looked like a dead dog. Qin Baoshan turned his hand and the person in his hand turned around. His eyes were tightly closed and he had obviously fainted. Chu Tinghu. It turned out that Qin Baoshan hadn't appeared all this time because he had gone to chase after Chu Tinghu. Chu Yang's eyes emitted a cold and sharp light. Murderous intent surged from his heart. Chu Yang had long made up his mind to never let this cruel, vicious and shameless Chu Tinghu, who killed his father and brother, live. Now that he saw Chu Tinghu appear in front of him, he couldn't contain his anger anymore. "If little brother can't bear to kill him, I can do it for you," Han Xiaoran laughed. "Of course, if little brother wants to keep him alive, you can too." "No need." Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. He clenched his teeth and said, "I may be a little touched when dealing with human beings. And I may feel a little disappointed even if I kill them. But wouldn't I be letting down my conscience if I don't kill these beasts that are even worse than pigs and dogs?" Qin Baoshan shouted, "Little brother, you're right. Catch him." He shook his hand and threw Chu Tinghu over. With a thud, Chu Tinghu fell to the ground. But at the same time he regained consciousness. When he opened his eyes and saw Chu Yang, he couldn't help but tremble. "Chu Yang?" Chu Yang looked at him coldly. Then he lifted the blood-stained sword with the tip of his foot. A cold light flashed in his hand. The sword was stained with Chu Feilong's blood, Chu Tingjiao's blood. Blood flashed. Chu Tinghu was extremely shocked. Big. But before he finished his words, Chu Yang's sword had already pierced into his throat without any hesitation. Chu Yang didn't even let him finish calling him Big Brother, because he felt that if this beast called him Big Brother again, he would be so disgusted that he would vomit on the spot. Chapter 827. As Sha Xinliang and Qin Baoshan led people to send the corpses of Chu Feilong and the other two back to the Chu clan, the peaceful courtyard of the Chu clan was suddenly in chaos. No one expected that Chu Feilong and his father would be sent back with 3 corpses when they went out at the same time. Chu Feilong's wife spat out blood and fainted on the spot. Chu Feiling, Chu Fian and the others rushed to the hall. The cries of the Chu clan were loud. Old Master Chu Xiongqing only wore clothes and ran out barefooted. Seeing the corpses of his sons and grandsons, the old master burst into tears. It was really unbearable for a white-haired person to send off a black-haired person. Although Chu Feiling was prejudiced against Chu Feilong, he couldn't help but feel sad when he saw the corpses of his brothers in front of him. What's going on? The old master's eyes were filled with tears. He shouted, "Where did Feilong go today? How did he die? How did he die just like that?" His voice was hoarse by the time he finished speaking. Everyone looked at each other, but they didn't know what Chu Feilong was busy with these 2 days. "Tingyun?" Chu Xiongqing shouted, "Do you know?" Chu Tingyun was crying loudly on his father's corpse. Hearing his grandfather's question, he suppressed his sadness and said, "Father has been leaving early and returning late these few days. And, yesterday afternoon, I heard that father arranged for 2 brothers to invite Brother Chu Yang to a banquet at the Lingyun Pavilion." Chu Yang? Chu Xiongqing's body shook and he took a step back. His face was pale as if he had suddenly aged a few years. Yang. Chu Feiling raised his head and was shocked. "Yes." Chu Tingyun said, "I heard that father had a good relationship with Yi Wubo from the Yi clan, so he asked 2 brothers to lure Big Brother over. I was afraid that Big Brother would be in trouble, so I specially went over with Brother Tingkong to remind Big Brother." Chu Xiongqing looked at Chu Tingkong and Chu Tingxiao and both of them nodded. Chu Xiongqing straightened back, instantly bent down. His heart was filled with grief and indignation, yet there was nothing he could do about it. Although Chu Tingyun didn't say it clearly, Chu Xiongqing had guessed it. Chu Feilong must have colluded with Yi Wubo and wanted to borrow Yi Wubo's power to get rid of Chu Yang. But somehow he and his 2 brothers were killed. Since that was the case, then this matter obviously had something to do with Chu Yang. Chu Xiongqing recalled that when Chu Feiling got into trouble back then, there were also people from the Yi clan who were active in this area. Last year, when he was seriously injured, it was Yi Wubo who led the Yi clan to retreat suddenly, causing him to be poisoned. All these showed that Chu Feilong and Yi Wubo had long colluded with each other. Chu Xiongqing felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. He didn't know what to say. "Where's your big brother? Where's Chu Yang? Why didn't he come back?" Chu Feiling asked anxiously. "Who sent the corpse back?" "It was sent back by Commander Shah." Chu Tingyun lowered his head and said, "Commander Shah is currently outside the hall." Chu Xiongqing didn't say a word and strode out. He only stopped when he was in front of Sha Xinliang. "Commander Shah, this matter, what exactly is going on?" Chu Xiongqing suppressed the sadness in his heart and asked in a deep voice. Sha Xinliang sighed and said, "Second Master Chu fought with someone in Lingyun Pavilion and was... Who is it?" Chu Xiongqing's eyes were burning. Sha Xinliang wanted to say something but stopped. Chu Xiongqing's face suddenly turned pale and he said, "Could it be Chu Yang? Why would Clan Master Chu think so?" Sha Xinliang said in astonishment, "The other party is powerful and there are many inside stories about this matter. It's inconvenient for me to say it directly." Chu Xiongqing pulled Sha Xinliang and walked a few steps forward. He bowed deeply and said, "Commander Sha, please speak out for me." Sha Xinliang sighed and said, "When the incident happened, we were in Lingyun Pavilion. Commander Sha Fa of the Southeast Region, Commander Han Xiaoran, had just arrived at Flat Mountain Ridge recently. Brother Qin and I were welcoming Commander Han Xiaoran. 0 reply to the first floor 2012-07-3016. 58 report. Let me say something too. Cheba Commonweal, even if heaven is heartless, it will live forever." Marshal King 8-inch Commander Han Xiaoran was also there at that time? Chu Xiongqing was shocked. Although he was there, he saw what happened clearly, Sha Xinliang said. "I'd like to hear the details." Chu Xiongqing's face became serious. Han Xiaoran was also there, but he didn't stop it. This was enough to show how complicated this matter was. At this point, Chu Xiongqing wouldn't doubt Chu Yang at all. With Han Xiaoran's presence, how would he protect anyone with his temper? It seems that Second Master Chu was originally Yi Wubo's subordinate. Sha Xinliang's words made Chu Xiongqing's face change. It seems that Second Master Chu had done something during this period of time, which made Yi Wubo unhappy. Then Yi Wubo lost his men. Second Master Chu blamed it on your grandson Chu Yang. So Yi Wubo requested to meet Chu Yang, and the meeting time was tonight, Sha Xinliang said. After Chu Yang arrived, Yi Wubo realized that Chu Yang had no cultivation. After confirming that Chu Yang had no cultivation, he flew into a rage. He believed that Second Master Chu had deceived him and instantly turned hostile. Then Sha Xinliang recounted the situation at that time, including every word that Yi Wubo said. Then he sighed and said, "We were next door at that time, but Commander Sha Fa didn't do anything." He said at that time, "What's the point of saving such a disloyal and unfilial person who killed his father and brother?" As for his 2 sons, they killed each other in order to survive. They're even worse than beasts. Saving them was a dirty move. Chu Xiongqing sighed and looked up to the sky, speechless. Sha Xinliang's narration of Yi Wubo's words dispelled the last bit of hope in Chu Xiongqing's heart. It turned out that the tragedy of his eldest son, Chu Feiling, being separated from his flesh and blood was caused by Chu Feilong. Chu Feilong was also the one who caused the sudden misfortune of the clan's few capable stewards. Chu Xiongqing's poison was actually caused by his own son. Chu Xiongqing looked up to the sky and sighed. He could completely understand the meaning of Han Xiaoran's words. What's the point of saving such a person? If he were Han Xiaoran, he would definitely not do anything. In the end, when Commander Sha Fa saw that Yi Wubo was going to lay his hands on Chu Yang again, the two of us begged him to save Divine Dr. Chu. Sha Xinliang sighed, "There's something that Clan Master Chu may not know. My chronic illness was cured by your grandson Chu Yang. So I have always had a good impression of Duke Chu Yang, and have taken care of him before." This sentence also revealed Chu Xiongqing's long-standing doubts. Although Commander Sha Fa sent the two of us to send the corpse back to the Chu clan, he also asked us to pass a message to you, Sha Xinliang said. Head Enforcer Lord Fa has a message for me. What message? Chu Xiongqing vaguely guessed but still asked. It's fine, if you don't take revenge. If you don't want to take revenge, you can take it slowly, Sha Xinliang said. Thank you, Commander Sha Fa. Chu Xiongqing looked up to the sky and sighed. At this moment he seemed to have aged suddenly. Han Xiaoran's words were very clear. Can you afford to offend the Yi clan? Moreover, is it worth it to offend a strong enemy who can easily destroy the entire clan for such a person who's even worse than an animal? Your grandson has been hit by the Yi clan's triple soul-snatching technique. Commander Sha Fa is treating him personally. Once there's any improvement, we'll send someone to send him back. Clan Master Chu, you don't have to worry. Sha Xinliang and Chu Xiongqing took their leave. Chu Xiongqing stood in the courtyard for a long time, as if he was a wooden sculpture. Hearing the cries behind him, he felt helpless, sad and lonely from his body to the bottom of his heart. Little brother, actually, there's something I don't understand. Han Xiaoran sat opposite Chu Yang, drank a cup of wine and said with a smile, You've spent so much effort and used all means to get rid of Chu Feilong through Yi Wubua. It's all because you don't want your hands to be stained with the karma of your relatives. But why did you suddenly take action and kill Chu Tinghu in the end? Chu Yang smiled faintly, nothing. But at that time I just felt that this bastard must die in my hands. If he died in someone else's hands, firstly, it's not enough to vent my hatred. Secondly, it's too easy for him. Han Xiaoran smiled. Thirdly, it's also because this person is too dangerous. It's too risky to leave him alive. You don't feel assured to let others kill him, right? Chu Yang shook his head and laughed. Elder brother, you're underestimating me. No matter how dangerous Chu Tinghu is, how can he be compared to Yi Wubua? Reply 8. Keep reply 2 ND floor, July 30, 2012 16:58 report, permanent petite bourgeoisie. Front row report, July 30, 2012 1700 hours reply, permanent petite bourgeoisie. Front row report, July 30, 2012 1700 hours reply, the only Xiao Yang in this bar. 3 report, July 30, 2012 1703 reply, only Xiao Yang. Begging for fans report, July 30, 2012 1703 reply, Saint Extreme Master. Front row report, July 30, 2012 1704 reply, Remnant Dream Xiaotian _ Squeezing report, July 30, 2012 1704 reply, Yuyo. When a diver enters the water, what's his hand movement? Report, July 30, 2012 1707 reply, only Xiao Yang. Report, July 30, 2012 1708 reply, I'll say something too. There are 3 more replies. Click to view. Cheba Commonweal, even if heaven is heartless, will live forever. Marshal King. 8 Han Xiaoran nodded. From your words, you don't intend to let Yi Wubua off? Of course. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. Yi Wubua is the main culprit. How can I let him off so easily? Dealing with Yi Wubua isn't a small matter. Han Xiaoran reminded solemnly, you need to have absolute confidence to kill him in one strike. Otherwise, you'd rather let him off and find another chance in the future. You mustn't act rashly. Your Chu clan is really not enough for Yi Wubua to deal with. Chu Yang smiled deeply. I know what I'm doing. Yi Wubua isn't Chu Feilong. I've long heard of the Yi clan behind him. Han Xiaoran nodded heavily. Then he seemed to ask intentionally, Little brother, your spiritual fluctuation is normal. Even when you're using the triple soul-snatching technique, there's no abnormality. This is really strange. Chu Yang was shocked. He knew that Han Xiaoran was a little suspicious. He said meaningfully, I'm the inheritor of the medicine fairy. Doctors attach the most importance to the inheritance of the divine spirit, Han Xiaoran suddenly realized and said, It turns out that you've obtained the inheritance of the divine spirit. Chu Yang smiled and nodded. Elder brother, please keep it a secret. This is my greatest reliance. Han Xiaoran smiled and said, Of course. Then he sighed, No wonder your medical skills are so superb. No wonder. It turns out that you've obtained the inheritance of the divine spirit that's rarely seen in thousands of years. There was admiration and gratification in his voice. Chu Yang raised his eyebrows and lowered his voice. He winked and said, actually, Xia Xinliang seemed to have used this method to interrogate me before. I used it as a pretext to scold him and sprayed saliva all over his bald head. Ha ha ha. Han Xiaoran suddenly choked and spat out a mouthful of wine. Then he laughed and pointed at Chu Yang with his trembling finger. You're small, ha. You're small, ha. As he laughed he shook his head. You're too mean. Chu Yang spread out his hands innocently and said, I can't do anything about it. If I had shown it at that time, I'm afraid I would have been torn apart by Brother Xia. Xia Xinliang really made me have a stomachache? Han Xiaoran still couldn't help but laugh when he thought of it. He winked and said, how did you scold him then? Quickly tell me, let me have some more fun. Chapter 828. Chu Yang was stunned. Chu Yang didn't expect this strict and impartial law enforcement master to have such a gloating and gossipy side. At this moment, Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan finally arrived. They heard Han Xiaoran's laughter from afar. Xia Xinliang walked over with his shiny bald head and said, Law enforcement master is so happy. You must have encountered something good? But what is it? Can you let me have some fun too? Puff, puff. Chu Yang and Han Xiaoran spat out a mouthful of wine at the same time. Then they coughed and laughed at the same time. Xia Xinliang's bald head was instantly covered with sweat. Xia Xinliang wiped his head awkwardly. Although he was depressed, he didn't dare to flare up. He said, this is really. It's rare for law enforcement master to be in such a good mood. Han Xiaoran stopped laughing and said, I'm talking to Brother Chu about how you interrogated him that day. Hearing this, Xia Xinliang suddenly remembered. Instantly, anger rose from his heart, and hatred rose from his guts. New and old hatred surged into his heart. He jumped up, grabbed Chu Yang's lapel and roared, good. If law enforcement master didn't mention it, I wouldn't have remembered it. Now I finally remember. You little bastard. You. He roared furiously, how come nothing happened to you after Yi Wu was 3 stages of soul seizing this time? Last time you actually pulled my collar and scolded me for half a minute? Chu Yang's face turned red. Cough cough. Cough cough. Cough cough. You let go of me first? Xia Xinliang's face turned red. No, you have to give me an explanation first. Chu Yang stuck out his tongue and had difficulty breathing. Suddenly he saw Xia Xinliang's shiny bald head and couldn't help but laugh with difficulty. Wasn't it? Ha! Xia Xinliang widened his eyes and panted heavily. You have to give me an explanation today. What explanation? Han Xiaoran said majestically. You were already planning to kill him at that time. How would he dare to tell you the truth? You didn't even think about how many of your lives were saved by this little brother. Furthermore, this little brother has uncovered the conspiracy this time, which is equivalent to saving millions of law enforcement officers in the southeast region. You actually have the nerve to say that. Xia Xinliang let go of his hand embarrassedly and laughed dryly. I'm just joking with him. As he said, he glared at Chu Yang fiercely, waved his fist and said, I'll settle accounts with you after the law enforcement master leaves. As he said this he couldn't help but laugh. Starter / Han Xiaoran then asked with great interest, Xia Xinliang, what did he scold you for? Xia Xinliang was dumbfounded and opened his mouth wide. Qin Baoshan couldn't help but laugh out loud. I was there and saw everything. If law enforcement master is interested, I can explain everything to you in detail. Xia Xinliang was furious and glared at him. You. Qin Baoshan wasn't afraid of him at all. He snorted disdainfully and began to narrate vividly. Before he even finished half of the story, Han Xiaoran was already convulsing with laughter. Xia Xinliang sat at one side angrily and drank cup after cup. In the end, even he was immersed in Qin Baoshan's story. He slapped his thigh and laughed heartily as if the story was about someone else. The 4 of them talked for a while and laughed continuously. Seeing that it was almost midnight, Chu Yang said, Elder brother, when are you leaving today? Han Xiaoran's face turned serious and he said, the Southeast Law Enforcement Hall has been invaded. We really can't delay any longer. If there's nothing else, I want to set off tomorrow afternoon and rush back to the law enforcement headquarters in the South region. Chu Yang nodded and said, So, how do you plan to carry out this matter? Han Xiaoran's face was gloomy and he said, Just kill. Chu Yang said, If you want to kill him, there's not enough evidence. Han Xiaoren laughed aloud. Although elder brother seems too strict and impartial, I'm not an inflexible person. Since it's already confirmed, why do we need any evidence if we want to kill him? As for his accomplices, we'll start with Tong Wuxin and interrogate him with torture. There hasn't been a single person who can hold back and not speak under the thousands of punishments in the law enforcement hall since ancient times. This matter is very likely to involve the Shi clan. Elder brother, you must be very careful. Don't alert the enemy. Chu Yang exhorted. After all, the Shi clan is one of the big clans. There are many martial saints in the clan. Elder brother, you can't do anything alone. You must be very careful. I know. Han Xiaoren sighed. It's a pity that there are too few trustworthy people on hand. Otherwise it's no big deal to start a war. He paused and said to Qin Baoshan, after I leave, you draft a document and report it to the southeast headquarters. Let the Chu clan take over the transportation channel of the auction hall. He turned to Chu Yang and said, Chu Feilong is already dead. There shouldn't be any problem, right? This was undoubtedly a huge cake. If the Chu clan took over the transportation channel of the auction hall, the strength of the entire clan would be greatly improved. Chu Yang frowned and said, Chu Feilong is already dead. There shouldn't be any problem within the Chu clan. The problem is, all the goods of the auction hall are transported through blood payers. If the Chu clan suddenly takes it over, we might offend the blood payers and block their source of income. And the strength of the Chu clan is also a little weak now. Han Xiaoren smiled. This isn't a problem. Tomorrow morning, I'll personally go to the Chu clan and make an agreement with the clan master of Chu Xiongqing. Also, the emblem of the law enforcement master of the southeast region will be flying on the caravan. I believe that in the whole southeast region, anyone who dares to rob will also have to think twice. Xia Xinliang said, Little brother, the law enforcement master is right. Why are you still refusing such a good thing? Besides, with the emblem of the law enforcement master, even if something really happens, it has nothing to do with the Chu clan. It's a matter of the entire southeast law enforcement officers. To put it bluntly, the people of the Chu clan are just running errands. That's all. Han Xiaoren's words were still a little reserved, but Xia Xinliang went straight to the bottom and revealed his bottom line. Han Xiaoren was unhappy and stared at Xia Xinliang fiercely. Xia Xinliang immediately shut his mouth. Chu Yang laughed and said, Since there's such a good thing, even if you don't mention it, I'll still shamelessly stick to it. Han Xiaoren said, Then this matter is settled. Everyone nodded. Han Xiaoren turned to Xia Xinliang. The law enforcement hall also needs to replenish some manpower. Once the situation is really chaotic, you need to become my last strength. Do you understand? Xia Xinliang stood up suddenly. I understand. Han Xiaoren said, After I go back, I'll immediately send some men to give you a purple cloud pill. After you take it, use the fastest speed to raise your cultivation to the martial saint level. If one pill doesn't work, then take two. And Qin Baoshan, you too. Raise your own strength as soon as possible so that you can have more power. By the way, filter the men I send strictly and select the reliable ones to form a sharp knife team. Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan agreed at the same time. Han Xiaoren sighed and said, Currently, the only people I can trust here are the two of you. Don't let me down. If one day, I, Han Xiaoren, die in the hands of a despicable person, the two of you will be my last base, and also the last hope of the entire southeast law enforcement officers. Xia Xinliang said excitedly, Law enforcement master, don't worry. You'll definitely be fine. Han Xiaoren smiled and said, The weather is unpredictable. Who can say whether the Qingming day will be a stormy wind or a stormy sea? He said deeply, The two of you have misdeeds, but you're upright. This is the most desirable point. Moreover, there's little brother here. If there's anything, you can discuss it with him. Although he's young, he's much more scheming than the two of you. Don't underestimate him just because he's young. Do you understand? Xia Xinliang and Qin Baoshan stood upright and nodded repeatedly. Han Xiaoren thought for a while, took off a token from his waist and passed it to Chu Yang. Little brother, there's a lot of undercurrents in the law enforcement officers now. Although your strength isn't weak, it's still too weak. So I don't dare to invite you to become a doctor in the law enforcement officers, for fear that I'll harm you. But you have my token. At times of crisis, you can take it out and say that you're the law enforcement doctor in the southeast region that I've personally appointed. Then you'll be safe. Chu Yang took it over solemnly, but he felt that Han Xiaoren's words were a little dejected, as if he was entrusting his will to Chu Yang. Chu Yang couldn't help but ask, Brother Han, don't you have the confidence to purge the southeast region this time? Han Xiaoran smiled faintly and patted Chu Yang's shoulder. He said meaningfully, if you're fully grown and come to help me, I'll have nothing to worry about. Chu Yang's face was solemn and he nodded. He seemed to have agreed to something. Han Xiaoran raised his wine cup and said, there's one thing that I want to remind the three of you. If I, Han Xiaoran, die, then all your efforts will be for naught. Little brother, you must immediately destroy your token and cut ties with me. The Chu clan will immediately terminate the cooperation with the law enforcement auction hall. Do you understand? As long as I'm here, I can protect you. But if I'm not here one day, the crisis will come immediately. The three of them didn't know what to say, so they could only drink this cup of wine silently. Han Xiaoran said, I have a clear conscience in the southeast region. But if I'm not here one day, Sha Xinliang, you must also remember that law enforcement officers enforce the law, the supreme law of the heavenly layer. If the heart and the law are united, even if you kill millions of people, you'll have a clear conscience. Han Xiaoran held the wine cup in his hand, and his expression was a little melancholy and contemplative. He said sympathetically, the heavenly layer has always been about the rule of law, but this rule needs to be enforced by people. So there's never any rule of law. If a person is righteous, the law will be righteous. If a person is evil, the law will be evil. Whether a person is good or evil depends on his heart. As law enforcement officers, you and I must never let the supreme law of the heavenly layer become the plaything of power. You must remember this. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.